Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I forgot to do that first. Welcome back to the X-Men Retrospective, Season 2, Part 2, Episodes 7 to 13. I think so. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Right?
12, I
Yeah.
think.
So, is it 12 or 13?
No, there's 13.
Is it 13?
Taylor,
Oh,
you missed one.
I went
It's
up
a
to
two-parter. Come on.
I
what are you
started
doing?
season 3, episode 1, and stopped
Okay.
there. So
So I hope
I'm definitely good.
That's episode 14.
yeah, he specifically skipped episode 13 to get to season 3. But yeah, here we are as usual. Patrons, you're getting this. Well, sorry, I'm the kind of cute Travis Snell, and I'm joined by.
Time fugitive, Kirkland Patzer.
Uh,
I'm the repulsive reptilian, Dilmas.
I'm the leather chicken, Taylor Field.
Leather Chicken. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, if you're patrons, you're getting this nice ad-free early when we're recording this. If not, you're getting this on the feed months later. That's why you always go to Patreon, because there's tons of stuff going on there. Tons of free, no, or not free stuff, but tons of good content, tons of exclusive content, tons of ad-free. That's what I was trying to say, ad-free content.
Free once you're a patron.
Exactly, right? Yeah, it's like every time when people like they have a subscription to Netflix, they I already, they don't think about paying for that movie and stuff. But yeah, so as usual, you can go back. We've recorded 3 episodes so far. Each of these seasons are divided in kind of half, so we usually do like a 6-7 and then a 6-7 stuff like that. So that's what this is. So if you haven't listened, go back and listen to season 2, part 1. Maybe I'll start just calling them that from now on. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. So we're starting off hot and heavy, returning to our favorite harmonica man, Bishop, with Time Fugitives Part 1. In the future, Cable realizes the world is disappearing due to Bishop's time-traveling interference. Bishop has time traveled from 2055 AD to stop the plague from Apocalypse. The plague was engineered and used by scientists and terrorist groups to increase the anti-mutant agenda, falsely accusing mutants of spreading the plague. The X-Men succeed in destroying Apocalypse's laboratory, but are killed by Apocalypse in the process. Cable, from the future, realizes with horror that he'll have to team up with Apocalypse to save his timeline. So, and obviously there's 2 parts there, but yeah, what do we want to just talk about the one part, talk about both of them, stuff like that?
I feel like part 1's a lot of setup stuff. And
Yeah.
part 2 is when it's like the heist, in the heist movie. That's like
Yeah.
everything else is kind of preamble. So I don't know. I feel like it might be good for this one to combine them potentially.
I'm down. You guys down for
I'm
me
down.
to? Okay. So then that happens, and then the first 10 minutes of episode 8 is pretty much just reenacting that and showing the very differences of that. But then Cable comes to the present to stop Bishop and to save his own world. He arrives the same time as Bishop, and the 2 time travelers battle it out to save their respective future timelines. Cable finds killing Bishop and helping Apocalypse distasteful, but is prepared to do what it takes to save his son and the future world from ending. Eventually, Cable comes up with a brainwave to deliberately let Wolverine get infected by the virus. Wolverine's healing abilities produces antibodies that the world needs to create a permanent cure, thwarting Apocalypse. Bishop returns to his timeline, discovers everything is still the same, although there's no plague. Cable returns to his timeline and discovers the world to save along with his son. So, yeah, Leather Chicken, what do you think we got? Obviously, we've seen some of these characters before. Cable was saving some characters on the island episode, I'll just call it that. And then Bishop was back for Days of Future Past, but now they're together, multiple different goals. One's time, like they're both traveling back in time for different reasons. What do you think about this 2 crossover?
Yeah, so we have 2 separate timelines, and I'm definitely big on like breaking of the timelines, time travel, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this one was definitely. I had to make sure I was watching the right episode because when we were getting like a replay of scenes, I'm like, holy shit, this is messing with me. But no, okay, this didn't happen in
We've
the
been
last
here
episode.
before.
Yeah, so no, all in all, it was pretty cool. But the these friends of humanity folks, man, they just annoy me at this point. God, they're so.
What do you
daft.
mean?
Yeah, they're so daft. I can't wait to talk about them in a later episode that they're featured in, which is quite humorous.
You just reminded me of a scene from that episode, and holy shit, that got me.
But yeah, overall, I thought it was very like humorous how Cable's like, yeah, I'm gonna have to I have to fight to protect.
I have to team up with Apocalypse to save my own world.
Yeah, and then
and
his
he's
computers.
like,
his computer's like the need of the many outweigh the need of the few or whatever it is like that. Like the
Tomb
save
Raider
one.
line.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just I thought okay, this is bullshit. You want to make sure your timeline stays. We saw how fucked up your timeline is. It's absolutely horrible. like you should be a hero. You should just come to terms with this timeline needs to not exist anymore. Somehow he did it, and logistically speaking, I don't really understand a lot of time travel stuff, but this made no fucking sense to me. How he did like the virus. They were gonna stop the virus, and if the virus gets stopped, then his timeline doesn't exist.
Yeah.
The virus gets stopped, period, because they got a cure for it, and then his timeline gets to be saved.
Because in that timeline they had the cure, so rather than the time, like I think I guess like they needed to go through that timeline, because then they create without Cable going back like he does. Beast does not create the cure for this thing. Is the way I see it. Yeah.
But then they still eliminate the virus either way. Because like they could have destroyed it in the regular timeline, or here at least they cure it. But either way, the virus is still gone.
Well, I guess the way is because like I think it's like if you take out the virus completely, no cure ever gets made. So then in the future, if let's say something like this happens, I think that's what they're insinuating happens. They didn't make a cure. So what happens if you let the plague play out? They create a cure in time. So like Beast or Wolverine's antibodies, stuff like that. Like that doesn't get to happen. The cure portion doesn't happen if you just cut the plague out completely at the beginning.
Yeah, and Wolverine being like, not patient zero, but the opposite of that, where he's got the golden blood, you know,
patient
that can
infinite.
Yeah, patient infinite. I think that's part of it too, where the fact that he is present in that moment is the fact that they can create that cure at all. Whereas if let's say this thing was created in the future, which maybe inevitably it would have been, without Wolverine there, it would have they would never be able to create a cure, and then it would have just killed everyone eventually. So you're right. There's some fogginess on it, but I guess for me when I was watching the episode, it made sense. So I don't know. Like, I guess that's fine.
Time travel, you know.
Yeah, it's one of those moments. I mean, I just love like the string of the time. I mean, the name alone is amazing, but just like again, them going back to different timelines. This is like connecting stuff that happened in season 1, 2, which is just really unexpected for me, like jumping into the show where you have like this storyline with Bishop that started and his mission wasn't really a success on his point of view, like in that moment. And then they don't talk about it in that season. And then at the end of in the back half of this season, we like jump back into that adventure, and then we get like an additional content on it with the whole Cable sequence. And man, Cable, like, intelligence of like 11,000 million, whatever it is, because like for him to just get all these like ideas together, it's like we're just gonna insert it into Wolverine and we're gonna go that way. And like we do follow him a lot like in that episode, but I still feel like me as the viewer, like I didn't even know what was gonna happen. Like he was making moves that I'm like I can't put a pin on this guy. He's all over the place. And then at the end, I'm like, oh my God, I just watched a Nolan movie, and it just all wrapped together at the end. So I liked it a lot. Like just these 2 strings of episodes is by far one of my probably my favorite, like part 1, part 2 combined. So yeah.
How'd you feel about Bishop when he got back? And the doctor's like, what are you talking about? The virus. And Bishop's like, what the fuck?
He's like gaslighting him. I've never met you before.
He actually remembers him, and he just keeps sending him back for shits and giggles. But no, it's 3 separate occasions, because he doesn't remember the virus, and then he doesn't. I can't remember the third one. There is something, but the other time he's like the X-Men. He's like, "What are you talking about, the X-Men?" Like every time Bishop brings something, the guy's like, "You're an idiot. That didn't exist."
The third one, when he gets back, he's like, "We stopped the virus." The guy's like, "What virus?" Like,
well, there was the virus, there was the X-Men, but there was a third one. I mean, it was the very beginning when they're talking about the assassination or something. Where again,
the assassination.
He's just like, "Oh, what do you mean that happened?" And like, you gotta love Bishop. Like 3 times in a row now, he shows up and he's like, "Oh, my future is still the same as always." Like no matter what he does, it's not changing a thing for him. He's like gone back 3 separate times now, and nothing's changed. It's always just a new thing, and it's kind of very like Time Machine Guy Pearce of like, is like kind of like no matter what Bishop does, there's always going to be something bad, and it sure feels like that, because nothing, like, it's just like a new bad thing, you know. But yeah, Forge is so funny when they get back there.
Love Forge. For myself, I mean, slight spoiler for just this whole section of episodes, but I feel like for me this is really when the show has gone from I'm enjoying it to liking it to I'm officially loving this thing. This is an amazing string of episodes. To me, this is the best run we've had yet. Like these just 5 or 6 episodes in a row just might be my 5 or 6 favorite episodes in the whole thing so far. And especially for me in this 2-parter here is go back to our season 1. I was pretty disappointed in the Days of Future Past episode.
Days of Future.
I want that sequence.
That's the
next.
X porn parody.
I've
one.
seen that video. Yeah.
If
God.
so, those companies did not make that in 2014. Shame on you. The
Yeah,
title
you
was right
should've.
there. Days of Future Ass.
I'll have to go Google that later and see what pops up. But
What do you
No,
mean ass? No one has asses anymore, Bishop. And Bishop looks down. They're gone.
yeah,
Just
I-
flat.
I was pretty let down by that because that was a run that I was familiar with from the movie. And I don't know, I thought it was pretty underwhelming what we did in that sequence. I'm like, man, that was the only time we're going to get that idea. That's kind of disappointing. But the fact that we're getting like just a sequel to this storyline that is, adding this like kind of this texture upon it from what was in that first season was just amazing. And I think for me too, just in terms of, if we do, are we doing a ranking at the end of this, by the way?
Oh yeah, when we finish,
Okay.
we'll do characters, arcs, and seasons. That's usually
Rank every
that's what we do
episode.
for
Yeah.
every all 85 million episodes. We will be ranking.
That would be
Yeah.
heavy. But I think for me, like, obviously it's hard to compete with some of like a Rogue or Wolverine in terms of depth. But Cable is like maybe top 5 for me right now. I'm loving Cable. We've seen him. I think this is the 3rd time he's popped up. And
Yeah.
both other times have been kind of minor, but I love the voice. I love always what he's doing, right? Because he's very much in his own world. He's got this mission, and I love what he's doing in this one too. Obviously, there's the emotional element of it. He's got a kid apparently, just randomly. This kid Tyler's kicking around. He's got this very confusing just cube of that knows everything that I found very interesting. But yeah, I'm loving Cable. So this was, as far as I'm concerned, like one of the best episodes so far. The 2-parter, I think particularly part 2 is the stronger one, but overall, I love the storyline. Love that we're doing the Days of Future Past thing again, but just going even more depth on it. That's so much fun.
Yeah, I echo everything you said. Like, this is definitely where I just feel like I feel like the past ones, we all get ones we enjoy, but there's one standout one, and the rest are like varying qualities. Where this was like, okay, you got some of the best stuff here, and yeah, I think this episode, like what you're talking about, shows, like I was telling you guys, like when Cable debuted, he was just like everyone's favorite because like how cool he is, but there's the backstory, there's the way he acts, there's so many things to him, and he just takes charge. And almost like what Kirk was talking about too, where I feel like both brain and fighting wise, they just make him so OP all the time. Like I can't remember who else, I have it in my notes, but he beats somebody, he beats Rogue, like he's always just beating these X-Men. He beat, remember, Angel a couple episodes ago really bad and stuff like that. So
He like hand-to-hand combat Wolverine too, and he like got
Yeah.
under his skin. Remember, he's like little man. He's like little man. Just goes right at him.
yeah, I just love this tactician, and I also, oh yeah, he beats Bishop. That's the other one, and I love the Bishop fight where they're fighting and Bishop doesn't win, but he just escapes. So Cable like teleports
I
himself,
love
like
his teleport.
yeah,
It's
like a little
great.
forward and stuff like that, and Bishop's like no, and like Cable just destroys this building. Like that's what it was. Cable's fire at one point literally just melts a building. Like that's how powerful his
Yeah.
future fire is. But yeah, all this is great. Like I liked Days of Future Past a lot, and this is another one too. Like I think this one actually is better now watching them so close back to back. I think the comic story I just have such a place in my heart, but I love everything about it. I know we'll get to, but the Wolverine thing is just, it's so clever. It's one of those things that even when I watch it now, I'm like, damn, that's perfect. That makes great logic of like, how do you make a cure? Well, you give it to a guy whose body produces the cure. It's like, oh my goodness. So, and then what I always love is they don't reveal everything. I just love like the little snippets of trying to show the connection of Jean and Scott to Cable. It's very subtle. You can like miss them and stuff like that. But yeah, I think everything, and Apocalypse is back too. Like he hasn't even been gone that long, and he's back, and he's shape shifting.
He's massive in this. Oh my god, he
Oh, yeah,
turns
he's
into
massive.
a sentinel or a whatever they're called.
Transformer almost
Yeah,
too. Yeah,
pretty much.
yeah.
I'm just trying to remember here. So the Cable that we met, there would have been 2 Cables in this timeline now at this time. The one from the future and the one that currently exists, right?
No,
And
that's always the same guy traveling back. So because Cable,
the other
is,
Cable, I thought the other Cable was just like that soldier, like had worked for the like Genosha or whatever he was.
No,
and,
he was
like,
just breaking
trained
he
people.
was just breaking them out and everything like that. I think that was for some specific reason. I don't know if they've revealed and stuff like that. Because Taylor, because I feel like I don't know if we've talked about it fully, but do you know like the connection between Cyclops, Jean, and Cable?
I don't, so don't spoil it.
I
Okay. So some of your questions will get answered. Some of your
Okay.
questions will get answered and stuff like that. But yeah, that is, I would presume, this Cable, because he's a time traveler. So I think he time traveled back to the island to help out some X-Men for particular reasons and stuff like that. So
okay.
yeah. And anything else before we get into like specifics or notes and stuff like that? Oh, we're gonna do that now. So
You mentioned just the super OP-ness of Cable. adding on to the super intelligence I was pointing out. Man, I love the gadgets that we got in the season 1, but like it was just times 10 in this string of episodes of all of like. He had one that just like I don't even know what it does, but it just put up like an invisible barrier when like the crew of like the basically just the super bigoted party, the For Humanity, whatever the hell they are. They're
FOH?
like the FOH.
Or
They're like,
FOA.
trying to get into the
Humanity.
courtroom, and he like puts this thing
FOH.
down, and they just like can't get by it. He does the same thing to Apocalypse with his little like grenade thing. Again, no explanation of really what it does, but like it looks really cool, and like we get the gist. It's just people can't get through that, or maybe it like is a concussion grenade, just disorients them. Mention his teleporting. And yeah, just like the overall having this like super Jarvis like in his arm, like the computer thing that he can always just like get details on the X-Men or whatnot. I am such a sucker for gadgets. If you listen to our any I guess retro on like any character, whether it's the James Bonds or like Mission Impossible characters, I love gadgets like this. But you throw in like futuristic gadgets, that's up in the ante. And I love the design of Cable, and it seems like so many things on him are like there for a purpose, not just like showmanship. Like he's got this like robotic arm that is just it's just like a computer, and like that's where he's got this like super cube in, which I don't know how that works, and I don't really care because it's just a really cool
it's
implementation of it.
Yeah, he's using the Taylor in Call of Duty. He's using the inflatable decoy, which I found that pretty funny. Just like
when
Taylor.
Bishop
he uses
was
it maybe a bit more
freaking out,
effectively than Taylor does. But
of course he used it, and Bishop's like, oh no, and he's still just like shooting rapid fire at his hologram.
yeah, Bishop's funny.
I feel like Bishop is the guy that casually plays Call of Duty, where Cable is the guy that's there every night, every day. Like he's there's no revives for Cable and stuff like that. He good guy. But Bishop, I also appreciate. I joked at the beginning, but we only got like one or two things of the harmonica. I was happy it was just not an overabundance. I know it's a little thing, but just like in Days of Future Past, they went like so hard on that harmonica, and it like almost killed the scene sometimes. So I like there's just a little bit of it here, and then they move forward into like regular score and stuff like that. So.
I was one thing I was kind of confused by is they're talking about how this mutant virus like went through and like killed a bunch of people, but then like when we see a glimpse of the future, like we get a quick shot of a future Rogue who looks kind of different, but I'm also curious on like the timeline of what's going on there, because she looks the same even though this is like, I don't know, what is it, 50 years in the future or something like that?
No, it's way more than that, right? Because it's like 25. Oh no, it's 2055. I thought it was 2555.
Maybe it's supposed to be like a descendant of Rogue and not Rogue per se.
She didn't have the white in the hair. That was the one thing that looked different
okay.
from our Rogue.
I think that's what it could be, is like someone related, or just maybe the animators just made a character that looked like they just took Rogue
To
the
save on
template.
cost. They
Yeah.
took,
Yeah.
that could happen, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. This was a note that I had, but like it honestly was just like the child in me. At one point, it was strange where Beast is looking at the DNA. He's like, very interesting. And then when they show a shot of the DNA, it just looked like boobs. It just like you can go back and watch it, but it was just like they even had boobs and it was nipples, and it was just very strange. Like I laughed. So there you go. The
way he's even doing like the pan and zoomify thing, he's like, just all do supercomputer stuff to get like looking in on it in different ways. That was a pretty funny sequence. I like that.
But one thing I was gonna say, shortly after that, it's when we get to that. It's like a court. Well, I guess it's like a press conference, whatever. I just love Bishop's crowd control. That his option is, I'm just gonna blast these people. Now, like a lot of them are the mobbing bad like humans, but he just takes his two arms and just get back, and not even like a warning shot. He just destroys the concrete, everything, and then he's threatening them. And then the X-Men are like, look, it's Bishop down there.
And we see that shot like so many times. I don't know why they show it over and over again. Well, but
that was the one that was in the both like the two episodes, right? Because they like replay the like what happened, but then slight differences. And like Taylor mentioned, in that like there was two periods in this stretch of episodes where I just felt like I like fell asleep for like a second, because I'm like, did I just restart the episode? I'll shout out the other one when we get there. But yeah, because they're replaying so many of the same scenes, I had to double check. It's like, okay, no, I am on part 2 here. Okay, no, like it is just the same future corrected or whatnot. But yeah, it definitely threw me for a loop. And you just mentioned his crowd control. I love when they're actually in the courtroom and like you have all of our X-Men just like fucking like WWE moves on these like FOH people. And then there was also one moment where like one of the FOH guys I don't know why. It just was so funny to me. He like got a gun somehow in this courtroom and he just like opened fire on Bishop and it's like these Star Wars like laser like blasts or something and it's like, man, this escalated so quickly. There's probably the judge guy that's still like, order in my court. Meanwhile, there's just like full on warfare going on.
That's not what the news cameras focus on either. They focus on the guy getting infected, and
Yeah.
these like humans are open firing.
Every time, like 3 shots of just like, look at what they did, just showing off his
He's such a like bad actor in that way. Like they even ham that up somehow in this style.
Oh,
it's
my
so good.
god, it's so good.
Travis, you're just talking about like the battle out front. I love that fight scene just because there's so much going on. Where there's the rooftop battle between Cable and Rogue, which is a lot of fun, and then Wolverine and Bishop are duking it out, and then just like the FOH versus the rest of the X-Men. But the way they're like cutting back and forth between all these, like it's me like one of the best action scenes we've had so far. Just all these different little battles happening in this greater situation, which is just like some random street in New York. Like it's not a great backdrop or anything like that, but I really like that fight scene.
Well, and then even like, because after that Rogue and Cable fight, it literally transitions to the Bishop and the X-Men versus Cable. And again, he's just like getting away, outsmarting and stuff like that. They cannot stop this man, like whatever they do. There's one moment I have in my notes. I love Bishop goes to shoot Cable and he goes, "This one's for the future," and he misses the shot, of course. So I think he misses the first one, but then he does get him because then Cable like teleports to get out of there. But yeah, that I loved that entire street battle because it was just chaos going on and stuff like that, you know. So
Yeah.
I did love him, like both episodes. You have Scott that just like repeated the same line when he's like, "Get this guy out of here! Get him to the Blackbird! He's starting to riot!" He was just like really trying to defuse the situation, but he was just so aggressive. And of course, in that moment, like we know, or I think the one I'm thinking of is when he like tackles the guy in the courtroom, and like we know what Bishop saw. Scott's just like soap. It's like, "What are you doing? Get this guy out of here!" And then they like go to the Blackbird and like see what actually happened. He's like, "Oh, okay." Yeah, no, he was in the
like
right."
they haven't dealt with Bishop before, who like usually has a bit more info than them, but right away because when they see him, they assume he's doing the worst. Which I guess when the first time they see him, he's like blasting the crowd. So I guess you would think something's up and everything. But because Wolverine's actually the most like like. I don't know, calm one. He's like, "Let me go talk to him." Like, and I know talk to him is still like he kind of wants to fight, but still everyone was like, "Get him out of there" and stuff. But he was like, "Oh, I'll handle him." I guess he just sees a kindred spirit in Bishop. So.
Calls him Rookie. Got that same nickname for him.
Yeah.
One quip I really loved from, because Storm's quips are just so lame, but I love them at
doesn't
the
get
same
it, yeah.
time. But I forget what the scenario was. This is in part 1, and she has to like spew some rain out there. I think she's like trying to muddy everyone's vision or something like that. But she's like, "I'm gonna quench their thirst for violence." It's so good and bad at the same time. She's always doing that. I don't know. I don't know if she needs to throw some line out there to summon these powers. I don't think she does, but she likes to anyway, and I appreciate it.
Super grandiose too, like the way that
Yeah.
she says it, like so much weight in her voice, and later
It's like the
There's
last
two
power
shows.
she'll ever
Yeah.
use or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like she does later episode, but like she does like a mist attack or something, and she's like right behind the people, and it's just like, "I summon the power of the mist," and it's just like, yeah,
God be with me.
yeah.
You reminded me, Dylan, in the part 2 when Cable captures Wolverine. Wolverine's like passed out. And Cable has this little cup of water, just splashes on him, and Wolverine wakes up. He's like, "What are you trying to do? Drown me?" And he's like choking.
Wolverine was so pissed off in that whole sequence. Just like he keeps teleporting around. He's like, "Oh God, again!" Like it just constantly. He sees the rings pop up around him. He's just so annoyed by probably the fact that he can't do anything. Cable is just that much stronger than him, or can at least knows what he's capable of. I think that's a big part of it, is knowing your enemy in that way. Oh, that was so fun.
And I love when he does take him back to the base because it's probably not a minute, but it feels like a solid minute. Cable just has Wolverine in this chokehold, and like the X-Men are trying to figure out what's happening.
I too am wondering what's happening.
I too am wondering what's happening. Taylor looks frozen too.
Whoa.
we'll just do our own cast.
This is like a different timeline going on here.
Am I back? Can you hear me?
Am I back?
Oh, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. No, when I saw, literally, you guys were there. Everything like nothing dropped
Same
for
for
me and
me.
stuff like that. But
Weird.
yeah, when he has him in like a chokehold for like a whole minute, and then when he takes down in the hotel, like even for 10 seconds, he's still like holding on to, like, Wolverine's just getting manhandled. There's nothing he can do. But it's I would have loved more to think about what the X-Men were thinking in that moment when they just like. When he just took Wolverine, you know, like, is he taking him to the future and stuff like that? And every time we go back to Forge 2, he still has that Wolverine, like, skeleton up there and things like that. So I think that's a good way of, like, okay, that's in the future, and then Cable takes him. You're thinking, okay, what's going to happen here? But no, it's because Cable has this idea that he kind of enlightens Wolverine on, but not fully, because I just feel like he thinks Wolverine's a hothead who might ruin the plan. So
He doesn't reveal his plan to
No.
like anyone till the very, very end when they're
I
like
got something.
they're
That's
like
always
approaching
neat, yeah.
Apocalypse, and like the X-Men like do their like epic like line to Apocalypse, like we'll be the one to stop you, and then Cable just like teleports in. He's like, and I'm gonna help. Like just such a badass in those moments.
yeah.
And like I think something that I just love about Cable's inclusion of this is like something we've already been talking about, is just the chaos of these episodes. Like there is so many things going on. So if like you have the X-Men who are like are focusing on Bishop, you have like the FOH people that are just causing a ruckus and, you know, scraping the mutant's name through the mud. No pun intended on the ruckus.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And then you just have like Cable who just like teleports in like a freaking Terminator or something, and then just is grabbing Wolverine and just dipping. It's just like you have no moment to really like stew on these situations if you're the X-Men. It's just like rolling with the
gotta go.
punches. Like
Yeah.
where did Logan go? I don't know. Some guy just grabbed him and teleported out of there.
I know, and this is like potentially weeks or months after Professor X still just disappeared, and they don't know where he is, and then it's like their other friend just disappeared. It's a pretty emotional time over at the X Mansion over here.
One thing I found odd is that Wolverine, they get the hotel wherever Cable's staying, and Cable tells him what's going on, and it's the, you know, this plague, and and he tells him like Apocalypse is behind it, and Wolverine's like, huh, Apocalypse, I don't think so. He said in a way like they had defeated him, not remembering that he just went down a secret door the last episode. But
Yeah.
Wolverine said it in a very like,
You're
it makes
lying. You're lying.
Yeah, you're lying. Apocalypse is dead. He died, but like it was it was like, I think it was just Wolverine as always just trying to be a macho guy, but it was just so funny. Like, you gotta be kidding me, that can't be real. And it's like, well, why wouldn't it be real? Like,
You'd think after a while they'd learn the lesson of, oh yeah, we should apprehend these guys instead of just letting them go. Like there's anytime they even like, there's later on in this season where they destroy someone, and they're like, it'll just take longer for him to come back.
Yes.
Like, they don't even acknowledge that. Like, oh yeah, we didn't kill him. No, we're not going to use that word on kids TV doing this here.
even if
but
they said fully defeated, but even that, like,
Yeah.
we'll get to the episode you're talking about. They literally just like, well, it'll just take a little bit longer till we meet him.
yeah,
again.
it
It's
took like 2 minutes. Yeah, it's not too long. So one of my big critiques of the first part of season 2 was, okay, we spent all this time in season 1 where Beast is locked up. And then season 2, it's just like he's been absent. Like, why did you like bring him onto the team if he's not going to be anywhere? And so just this is for every episode going forward, but like a lot of Beast time. There's obviously a Beast centric episode that we'll talk about soon. But I'm so glad that we're finally getting Beast as part of the team, and I'm getting to see more of his personality. But one thing I really loved from him was his little dig on Creed at the end of this thing when they. Like Creed's like doing his whole thing. I think it's maybe in the courtroom, and they save him when they're like escaping from this place. And he has that little line. He's like, "Remember, Creed, a mutant saved your life." And to me, that was just a very Beast thing to say. You know, like he is very different in the way he quips, and like violence is his last resort. And so I really like that little line that even in this moment, he's still like trying to help Creed like turn around in a bit of a way. So I think it just kind of shows who he is. Hank McCoy, that's the kind of guy he is.
Yeah, man.
Doctor.
Creed, Dr. Hank McCoy. Yeah, man. We'll get to it, but Creed has a couple bad days back to back. You know.
Yeah, a little screaming match, maybe a hissy fit or two.
This was the start of it. If this was Creed's bad week, this was day one, and he had to relive it multiple times, but just revealing his chest in the courtroom, saying, "Look at me." You never want to go. You never want that to be the start of your week and stuff like that.
Especially the guy that he's working for is a mutant who he just hates. He's like, "You're a mutant too."
Yeah, the first one actually.
Yeah, his dad. Yeah, everyone who actually has any relevance in his life Fuck. Turns out they're a mutant too.
Yeah, but yeah, as we've talked about a few times, yeah, Apocalypse was back in this one. He was massive. He wanted to prepare. Like, it's interesting. He had the idea of being secretive with this plague, but then when it went to shit, he's like, I'm just gonna get Hulk size and fight these X-Men. He at one point has like an like, it's so weird why he has to do it. It's comic book. I love it. Like, he makes a shield, but the shield also has like his Apocalypse logo on it. It's like, why do you even need to do like if
Branding
you're
is
even,
very important.
if you're even creating it in your mind, why do you make a shield with the A on it? Shield, like, why is it not just a shield? But he had the arm cannon. He was mass in this episode. And again, he was just they didn't defeat, they won, but he's just, oh, you X-Men, like he's that. So he's not defeated. So two times in a row they've beat him, but not killed him, you know? So
yeah, it's this is a weird entry for Apocalypse because like honestly, if we were going through this episode, we almost could have like not mentioned Apocalypse whatsoever, just in terms of like doesn't like other than the size thing that's kind of interesting, but it's just one of those things where they have a few of these villains now that are kind of, you could say, power players, right? Like Mr. Sinister's another one where it's like almost when they have an episode that like doesn't really need a villain, but they have to have a villain in every episode. So like, you know what? We'll just throw Apocalypse in, and he was the guy that was behind this particular venture. So it seems like it's a bit of a not as intriguing outing for him here, but I did like that size stuff, and the shield was fun as well.
yeah, I'll go through my notes.
That was everything for me on these time fugitives.
Oh,
part one,
yeah.
part two.
Well, then that's what I was going to ask you guys, because I'm not sure what Dylan knows. So, yeah, we had Cable. He was going through the X-Men and everything like that. He gets to Jean's guys. Oh, I know about them. At one point, Jean read Cable's mind. There's a bunch of flashes going on, and Jean's like, oh, this guy's really important. Kirkland and Taylor. And like I said, I don't know what Dylan knows or doesn't know. But
I
for
don't
you
know
guys,
either, no.
Okay, so then what are you guys theorizing? Why do you think Cable's, why do you think it's, what does she see? And what's flashing up here and stuff like that, you know?
The way that I took it was just like because he's from that era, like she like saw kind of what he experienced. That's like how far I got to in that quick. moment.
Yeah, I would not have read into it until you just mentioned it now. And now I'm like, okay, well now there's something more going on here. But the way it was in the episode, like I didn't think twice about it. But now, I mean, when we're talking about these connections where Mr. Sinister is so set on these two being very strong DNA, Cable's very strong, like, I don't know, maybe that's their kid. I don't know. That just seems like a thing to do in these things. So I'm not sure, but I'm curious to find out as well.
Taylor, any theories?
Well, I kind of
Travis
took
is
it like,
perplexed over
Well,
here.
I put a quote. Some characters said time to reach out and touch someone, but I didn't put who said that in this episode. It was like it was like a time to reach out and touch someone. And it was like,
Is that a
punch,
rogue thing,
kick,
maybe?
Maybe something like that. I can't remember what it was, but someone said it in a very action hero sort of way, and it was
a
good
weird line. I remember
Yeah.
that one. Yeah.
I should have wrote it down. My bad there, but yeah, Taylor, any thoughts?
with how much like this will be in a later episode, obviously with Mr. Sinister, but there's just such a focus on like Jean and Cyclops for their genetics, their DNA. I'm assuming that, like, I don't know Cable's origins very well, but it could be like a kid from the future, a descendant, or something genetically going on there. That would be my pitch.
All right. And then my last two notes is one, we talk about like time travel. It's very Terminator, but if anyone here has seen Looper, reminds me a lot of that episode 2 with Bruce Willis and stuff like that and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So hopefully one day we retch that movie because it's great. And then my other point is, so when they get back to the hotel room, Cable has him in the headlock, he lets go, and then he shoots him. And they have this outside shot of a guy walking past the motel room. It like goes like purple. He stops, he looks, and he just goes right back to walking. Like, it's like almost like, why did they need him? The civilian, and I guess maybe you won't want to check, but he was like very curious, and then he didn't care and stuff like that. So
That scene was like, I appreciate they put that in there because I feel like that's such an unnecessary thing to like throw in there, that he just has this like light effect going on. But it's
Yeah.
man, that's some detail that they threw in that moment. So
what would happen if that guy went in there though? You know, like to try and like, hey, what's going on here? And Cable just
get your hands
blasts
off him.
Yeah, yeah. So any other notes, or we want to give some thumbs out?
I'm ready for thumbs.
Go
Ready
on
for
once, going
thumbs.
twice. Okay.
I-
So yeah, go ahead.
I'll give the part one thumb. Then I'm gonna give part two the 2 thumbs. For me, it's like the more Cable focus of it. It's into the fun stuff. I think that's how I would square it out. But as a 2-parter, if I was to rank it as one, I would definitely give it a 2 thumb.
I will give both of these 2 thumbs up.
Dang.
I thought yes, part 2 was a little bit stronger, but I just liked how we went through like the adventure in the first one, and then like that's like setting up I guess the canvas, and then the second one is like retreading on like what was already kind of told, just a little bit of a variance. So I think it would be tough to get the same effect, obviously, without the part one. So yeah, I really just saw it as like one complete episode. Helps when I just watched it back to back. So
Yeah.
I would probably go. Sorry, the reflection, Travis. It just reminds me.
I was just about to message you the joke.
He's dealing with this pod or whatever.
Oh no, it was before air, and Dylan and Kirk had to go wash him, so we go, and then Dylan got up, and we see his reflection on TV. I said to Tim, like, imagine if we just saw Dylan like going on his floor, like, and then he came back like nothing happened. And he was like, oh yeah, we got hardwood, don't worry about it. We just mop it off, like, and then when Dylan caught him again, yeah, I thought the same thing about.
We created a whole Bishop alternative future there.
Yeah, you just, instead of going to the wash, you just piss on your floor and the TV reflection can see it. So there you go.
I'm going to give the first episode a 1 thumb up and the second episode a 1.5 thumbs.
I think together I give them 2 thumbs. I don't know if it's a cheat. Then the first one I give like a 1.5 thumbs because I think the second one is better. But really, just I guess chalk me up to 2 thumbs because I feel like they work so well together and stuff like that. So the Time Fugitives. So there we go. Episode 9, A Rogue's Tale. This is a big paragraph, so bear with me. Mystique, Rogue's foster mother, which is great that they really specify this in this episode because earlier on they tried to do their best, like, I'm your mother. Forces her to revisit her own past. Due to Professor Xavier's long disappearance, Miss Marvel's suppressed consciousness begins to break free, causing Rogue to receive haunting visions. Mystique lures Rogue to the hospital where she sees Miss Marvel. We've skipped over a lot from them, but comatose body, and she remembers the past. She remembers she ran away from an abusive, mutant-hating father, found Mystique. Mystique raised her and one day sent her on a mission to attack Miss Marvel, resulting in Rogue absorbing her powers permanently. Unfortunately, when Rogue absorbed her power, she also absorbed her consciousness, leaving Miss Marvel in a coma and Rogue plagued with Miss Marvel's psyche. Rogue finds Professor X, who helped her suppress these visions in present day. Miss Marvel's consciousness begins to fight Rogue. You kind of already said that, Wikipedia. You don't need to say it again. Jean uses Cerebro to help trap and restrain the Miss Marvel memories. Rogue is saddened regarding Miss Marvel's fate, but is left with no choice. Mystique tries to convince Rogue to join her once again, but Rogue declares mistake made her worse than a killer. She visits Miss Marvel's comatose body, brings her flowers, tells the nurse that her real name, Carol Danvers. As she leaves, the body shows signs of life and a small smile.
that Wikipedia, like, I feel like that was one of the worst ones of just like getting every single detail in there. Like they even have the smile from Miss
and like I said,
Marvel
it mentioned twice about like she had her consciousness. It's like we got it, but you never know with the Wikipedia.
in case you missed that part of the synopsis.
Yeah, I thought this was a fantastic. I kind of forget how good this episode is, but man, this was great. I'm so because I knew this part was coming because it's funny. A couple episodes I can't remember if it was last week or last episode, one before, we were talking about the Miss Marvel origin as far as Rogue and stuff like that. I know they did it, but for some reason, also in my mind, I remembered it being a lot quicker, like just a couple flashes. I didn't think of it being like a 10-minute, 5-minute sequence or something like that. So I thought that was great. I hope Feige just completely lifts this from the comics and this show and just does this, like make Rogue on the bad team and she bumps Miss Marvel. Wouldn't it be great in a Captain Marvel movie if she just meets a team, there's no announcement of who it is, like it's the enemy that boards her ship and that's just Rogue? Like, I love this origin. I love it great. And I think I've always thought this. I think the comics do better because I feel like they make Rogue seem a little younger when Mystique adopts her. She adopts her, feels like kind of that kind of, I don't know. She doesn't seem like she's aged much between the adoption to now, and even to call her mother. I think that's the thing where, because I think in the comics it's more like a 10 to 12 sort of age. So it's like, okay, 10 to 12, then, 10 years later she breaks off, because you can kind of be like, oh, mother, this feels like maybe it's been a year or something. Yeah, like really, it doesn't seem like that long. So the mother thing's kind of a stretch, but I thought all around this is a great episode, and it has some very probably not meant to be funny stuff that happens with Blob, but funny stuff nonetheless. So.
Yeah, no, I love this episode. It was nice to finally get like the backstory, I guess, for Rogue, and I always had heard probably from Travis that like that's how Rogue flies is because of Miss Marvel, and I'm like, I wonder how that interaction would have, like, why would she have grabbed her? Because I didn't know that she like was like a bad guy or anything like that. I just thought it was a mistake, but I really like this episode. minus all of the Rogue screams. Oh my god, that was
Oh,
like
man.
it
That
was like
terrifying.
headache
I loved
inducing.
that.
Yeah, you loved it.
I did. And like,
Yeah.
holy shit, this is like out of The Conjuring. This is genuine fear.
Oh, I didn't. It was just screeching, like yeah, and like so many different times. But again, it got that effect off that she was she was very much scared. But I did like the whole psychological aspect of it, I guess.
Torture,
Of,
yeah.
no, for sure. Especially like the creature element that they had for like Miss Marvel, the way that she was seeing it. Like it was some weird lizard individual. So like I had seen that Miss Marvel like costume before, but I did not put two and two together that was like supposed to be, her until obviously we see her in the flashback. So overall I really, really like that episode. I think the screeching could have been toned down a little bit, but it definitely got the point across.
I love this episode as well. I mean, Rogue was already kind of a top dog for me in terms of one of my favorites before this, and so to go through and get her origin story in a way which is a lot different than what my knowledge was of the character was really fun. And Travis, what year was it roughly when like Miss Marvel became Captain Marvel, and then they like created Miss Marvel as a new character?
I feel like it's somewhere more in the early 2000s, I feel like. Because even when we played like Marvel Ultimate Alliance in 2000s, she was still Miss Marvel at that point. But I could get a...
Because Miss Marvel was like in the last 15 years, right? New character?
Yeah, like Kamala Khan.
Yeah, Kamala Khan.
Yeah. She was very... Like, I think she's 20... I think she's... I don't know if she's even 10 years old yet, Miss Marvel. I'd have to Kamala Khan at least. It's pretty new. She's one of the newer, more popular ones, so...
But yeah, no, I loved everything about this episode. The screams, I'm with you. They were a bit intense. Which, I'm trying to remember because there was a point in the first season when she's screaming like crazy too, and I can't remember the context of it. But it seems like once a season, Rogue's just gonna go off. Something's gonna really upset her, and she's gonna have some of these screams. But that voice actress just killing it in the recording booth on that one. But I loved this episode. One of my favorites once again.
I think it was when she grabbed Juggernaut, Dylan. That was when she was screaming because it was too much to handle.
It still haunts Kirkland. He dreams about Rogue screaming about Juggernaut. Yeah, so she became Captain Marvel in 2012. Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan debuts in 2013. So there's where you can see that switch over. So Kamala is just a 10-year-old character now, and
crazy.
That's pretty impressive. So, but so there's that switch over.
I thought I'll start with those screams. Those screams definitely what had like perked my ears in this because I felt like she's not even acting. Like the director's just like scaring the shit out of her and just has the recorder going on.
She's just in a room and they're just
in a room, lights
scaring her.
It's a long scream. Yeah.
I did really, really enjoy this episode though. I don't know why, but I found it funny when she was starting to like trip out and she just went outside and Wolverine's just shirtless minding his own business.
I know.
And he's
why did he approach her like that?
Oh yeah, and then she just loses shit.
Rogue.
Just sends him, just like knocks him way out over there, and I thought he was gonna get mad, but it wasn't the case. She's like, "I'm so
the fuck's
sorry,
the matter with
Wolverine." Yeah, you are. Jesus, Rogue, you are a freak.
Yeah. And then Gambit approaches her too, and then throws her down.
Jesus, Rogue.
Can we talk about why do they say that in 2000 Spider-Man? Why do they call him a freak? He defends himself and he punches a dude, and they call him a
Jesus,
freak.
Parker, you are a freak. I feel like that was.
It makes no sense.
That was a bully term around that era.
I guess so. It just always bugs me. Of like, he's not a freak. You guys have picked on him for his whole life, and he punched a dude once, and now he's a freak. That means Flash like the biggest freak around. But anyways. Let's get into it. So it starts like there's stuff like it's like a quiet episode. They have one moment I forgot to write down the line, but they have some moment where Rogue she's in some different type of clothing for once, and her and Gambit are kind of flirting because she's like, "Oh, you dressed for like that for me?" She's like, "Oh, sometimes, but not today." So it's like, okay, it was like a classic Rogue Gambit situation where she throws like a compliment while throwing an insult at him.
Isn't that at the end of the episode when she's going to go to the hospital?
Yeah.
Oh, at the end? Okay, there you go. Yeah, right. So they got some of that, and also like what you're talking about with Wolverine. Gambit also tried to calm Rogue down later on. That doesn't go well. She just dispatches him. Yeah. So doesn't go good for any of these two. But I guess the thumbnail was of Mystique. I was gonna say when you guys pick up Mystique was, but the thumbnail's just her like with a gun holding down. So
you
saw that.
You kind of see it coming. But I'm trying to remember because there's Blob and then there's I think Avalanche is the name of the ice guy. What's the fire guy's name again?
Pyro.
Pyro. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
Avalanche is probably the worst mutant we've gone here as far as just like I can't remember what he does. He does something and Pyro's literally like, "Good try."
Well, no,
like he missed.
Okay.
Yeah, what
I was
happened?
gonna say, like, when they're initially supposed to just like I guess get the X-Men to their location because they're like the distraction force. They're like, all right, we did our job. Let's get the fuck out of here. You know, paraphrasing. And then Avalanche is like, no, I want my chance at the X-Men. He's like, suit yourself, buddy. And then Avalanche just gets like completely decked by
Yeah.
whoever.
I think it's Wolverine or
somebody.
somebody. It's Wolverine or Beast. Like it's one of the more powerful guys. And yeah, he takes a shot. They move and they just like throw something at him or punch him. And Avalanche is KO'd. He's just on the ground like knocked out. It's just like every time, in fact, each episode he tries to be the cool guy, it doesn't work out for him. He's definitely there just as like because he can create. I don't know, distractions. Because he sucks, man. He's almost as bad as Angel.
He doesn't even do anything that cool. Whereas at least Pyro does some cool stuff with his fire, and in this episode he creates like a massive fire lion, which I loved. I thought that was super cool. But so I guess we're supposed to assume that because going into the memory part of it, like obviously Rogue was working alongside these guys, which I thought was interesting. But she had that run-in with them in that bar that one time. I think it was under Apocalypse was like leading them at this point, but now it's Mystique leading them, who is like weirdly connected to Mr. Sinister in a way that they never really comment on, but they just like tease him essentially. So I thought that connection was weird. But I guess when Xavier deletes her memory on Miss Marvel stuff, it's all that origin story, and therefore also the fact that she had run in with these guys before. But I don't think those guys comment on knowing her.
No.
When they encounter her in the bar, like they weren't thinking ahead in that
Sister?
way. Yeah, but I thought it was interesting that those guys were kind of part of the origin. And I guess getting into that part, I love when she's like taking their powers and messing them up and stuff. I thought that was a really fun sequence in the flashback.
At the start here, when we kind of get introduced to Mystique, and again, I didn't know it was Mystique walking this outside in the rain.
Oh, there you go. You didn't know. There you go. Good.
When she had the umbrella and she's walking, and this guy just standing there, he's got a newspaper over his head. It breaks in half from the rain, and he's so angry. He goes up and gets in this girl's way. Give me that umbrella. This is where I love Mystique, because she just turned into this demonic, like rabid dog thing and scared the shit out of him. But it's just such a weird thing, just this guy with this piece.
You've
of
never done that?
newspaper.
When you're out of an umbrella, you just walk up to some other lady, give me this.
I found it was like the most like Saturday morning cartoon PG rated like interaction for that. You know, you have this like super sketchy guy like approaching a woman in an alley, and what does he say? Give me that umbrella. I'm getting soaked out here.
Yeah, it was pretty strange.
But I was with Taylor. I did not see the thumbnail. I had no idea that was going to be Mystique in that
I'm
movie.
getting soaked out there. Yeah, they should do that in some rated R movie where you think some guy's in an alley going to do some really bad stuff, and he really just wants the umbrella. See how much it's raining?
Soaking wet.
Yeah, I'm going to get sick.
He's so pissed off.
Well,
I don't want anything else from you. What do you think I was going to do? I just want the umbrella.
it's like the motherfucker Jones thing. Like,
Yeah,
in my
100%.
hand.
What's the
in a
confusion?
purse.
Yeah.
What's the confusion?
I want the umbrella. We're doing that joke in a movie at some point. We're still that.
Man.
Oh, man.
Going into, I guess, more of the Rogue like flashback sequence, we got that classic shot of her like kissing her first boyfriend, and then it like knocks him out. So that's fun to see. But also, I find it funny that like her redneck dad, of course, he like disowns her. But whenever anyone has these moment like their anti-mutant thoughts in this show, they're never just like, Rogue, I'm really disappointed in you. It's like, it's always like, what the fuck, Rogue? I can't believe you're doing this. You're a mutant. You filthy. Like, they're always just the worst people. It's never like, okay, I can see where he's coming from. He's not used to this kind of thing. It's always like, no. 0 to 10, he is completely against her in this moment.
I think the only people that were not close to that, but were not yelling, were Jubilee's
Yeah, I
parents.
was
At least
gonna
they were
say.
just like, "Oh, it really sucks. Our beautiful daughter's a mutant, but we got to get rid of her." Like,
Oh yeah, they're like, yeah, our VCR is broken. It's like,
yeah,
fuck.
they were so shitty, but everything else has been, yeah, you piece of shit. And then like they gave them like the classic, like I don't care. These guys look like mega guys from our generation. Her dad has the glasses, has the hat with the American flag on, and just like, you're an awful disappointment. How could you live in my house? And then poor Rogue just has to deal with this
Well,
guy.
the house and the aesthetics that they set, like even like Gambit's origins and now Rogue's origins, it's always just run down. Like there's no furniture. It's just like, just like a shed, basically.
Low income.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's why Xavier's nice. One of my favorite things that they do all that, and yeah, I like all the orange stuff. I love the training of it and everything, and I love that when Mystique sends her on this mission with Miss Marvel, you can like at first it's just a mission, but I feel like throughout the mission you can see how selfish Mystique is. Like the plane is
Yeah.
about to crash, and Mystique's like, "Keep holding on." Like there's no reason for her to do. And even when she's like, "Why'd you want me to hold on?" She doesn't really give her a specific, just like, "Oh well, I need you. We need to get this done" or something. Like it's never. So I like that they were. The last time we got the reveal of like, "Hey, I'm your mother. I know you. You should come with me." And then up in this point, it's, "Oh, she took her in from the bad father. She gave her this mini family. She's training her." And it's like, "Hey, yeah, why would she leave Mystique? It seems like things are good." But then you get that little reveal of, okay, she's just using her to like take out power. And like she has some sort of, which I don't think this is in the comics. I could be wrong. She just has some like blood feud with Miss Marvel. Of like, this was my chance to finally take down Carol Danvers. And it's like, what did Carol Danvers ever do to you? I don't know. But yeah, I like the pacing of all that. The only thing I find kind of weird is how it ends. Is so she's flying away and she's like, "Oh, I heard her voice in my head," and Xavier just refers to her as mutant. He just keeps saying mutant.
Yeah.
Mutant.
Hey,
Yeah,
freak.
like, it's not like in the live action movies where it's like, "Oh, you're calm. Don't worry. Come over here." It's just like mutant.
He should know her name if he's
And
in her
he
thoughts.
does.
Yes.
Right
Yeah.
afterwards, he says rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, weird.
So it's just weird. Like if I met someone, they just kept saying human, human.
Yeah.
Like I would think this guy's not one to trust. Like
Give me your
if-
umbrella.
And Rogue is her like hero name, so she shouldn't even have like what is the character?
Marie.
Yeah, like he doesn't say Marie, I think, right? Like he says Rogue.
He just knows this is your new name now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like kind of a weird name to give someone. It's like a bit of a shady name, but I
Yeah.
don't know.
Great title up of the episode though, A Rogue's Tale. I like that. That's a cool ass.
Yeah.
It's like we should get, if they do a Disney Plus Rogue show, that's what they should call it, A Rogue's Tale. That's
Rogue's
fucking
Tale.
awesome. Yeah.
like-
With her stealing Miss Marvel's memories, that's never something she's ever doing against anyone else, right? The memories thing does never come. Is it because Miss Marvel is so powerful that it's like putting her power to another level, like almost like an apocalypse thing where it's like boosting her because of
Yeah.
how powerful she is, that she also took the memories? Is it something to do with like Miss Marvel's memories are somehow connected to her powers in a weird mutant way? Or is that just like a plot device essentially? Like we're gonna make her take the
I think it's
memories.
more the plot device. I think I could buy that. Yeah, with her powers, maybe there's some sort of existential sort of mind there. Because even like look at
Yeah.
that first Captain Marvel, right? She does a lot of like inner memories and stuff like
Well-
that. But like, I think it's more so just to create some sort of tension with these.
Isn't that what
characters.
Rogue did to Mystique though? Is get her memories? Like that's why she's like, touch my face and remember.
Yeah, I guess you're right. She did.
and
touch my
then I
face.
thought there was another character too that she did
Yeah,
that with,
the
where she got a little bit more
Mystique,
backstory on.
The Mystique part, for some reason that felt like kind of intuitive to me, just because she is a shape-shifting type character. I guess it made sense there, but
And it's
that's
just
a good
Rogue's
point. That is a good
memories too,
counter
though, right,
argument.
though?
But yeah, like just in terms of her using her powers on other people, like when she does it on Cyclops, I can't remember another one off the top of my head, but like yeah, that never seems to be
Juggernaut.
Juggernaut, an element with it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with the Juggernaut, if she's shouting about that, maybe there is something there. But I'm gonna keep an eye.
memories
It's one of those
hurt.
things. I'm keeping an eye out for it now.
Yeah.
In the future of the show.
It
'Cause
does
she
seem to
kinda-
be brought up and emphasized a lot more, like when it is convenient and needed for, a story reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't remember if she had some line with Juggernaut feeling about like, oh, and he really hates the professor. Like I feel like there was maybe some line dropped about that too, of like she doesn't get exactly, and this one was her memories, but I feel like she just kind of takes on even some of their like personality traits in the moment, like just how their attitude is, because you're
Right.
absorbing them. So I guess this is just like a higher level of that, of getting these memories. They're much higher where they're literally in cerebral fighting a mind like Miss Marvel. This is like very trippy sci-fi, like X-Men stuff
Yeah.
going on here, which I did enjoy. I thought they did it well, but it's just like, right, I forgot they had like a mind fight. Like I like it's like Inception almost of like I did not remember any of this stuff.
Another kind of logistical question on this. So, and Travis, you might know the answer if this happens in a later season, if Miss Marvel comes back. But with this thing of, okay, Jean is separating the powers or the mind element from Rogue, giving that back to Miss Marvel, which is her regaining consciousness. Is she going to get her powers back too? Because obviously Rogue still has those powers. So is that like, are those powers going to be in two people at the same time? Are they just not going to comment on it? Because I feel like if Miss Marvel is to come back, I imagine she's going to be flying and punching things again. if we see
I
her.
I don't have we seen like a person like lose their powers? Like usually if they're incapacitated or knocked out or something, and Rogue just happens to touch them. Like with Cyclops, he was knocked out, so then she was using his laser beams and stuff. So I felt like you still have your powers, but she just gets like instantly like mimics it.
I
But
guess
the
I always
difference-
thought she
Got that wrong.
steals them, but I could be just wrong on that.
Well, the difference between like the way that she normally like takes people's power or energy is that like she just permanently has Carol's powers, and I guess that's the one that's a little bit unclear because yeah, Carol is still in that coma. We don't know I guess the
Yeah.
full extent, but again, maybe Travis knows. He's seen the end game.
No, they like I for Rogue's powers, I just take it as they are. I feel like she can have them for a permanent time. It's almost like renting them. But then with Miss Marvel, it was like a rent to own situation where she put in so much money she eventually owned them. That's where I feel like with anybody, like technically, I feel like whether it's comatosing or killing people, I think she could go to any mutant and take their powers. She just doesn't obviously want to do that. But yeah, unfortunately, no, Miss Marvel does not come back in this show, so
Because-
you don't get that answered.
Because that, like, even when I'm thinking about the movie, at some point when, like, Rogue is like on deathbed, and then Wolverine like touches her to
Yep.
himself, like his powers are not working in that moment either, right?
Yeah, they kind of get subdued for a second. Yeah, in
Yeah.
that one, but then he gets them back later on. He is in like a mini coma.
Right, when they're
actually.
not
Yeah.
when they're not touching anymore, and it reverts back. So yeah, I'm a bit curious exactly. It might even honestly just be like, what do we need in this scene, whether it's a comic book, TV show, or movie? What do we need to service this scene?
Yeah.
We'll just kind of meld the powers, and then you could just pass it off as like, this mutant's more powerful than this one. The powers work this way when Rogue touches them. It's kind of could be something like that too.
Or again, maybe it's like if she holds on for 2 minutes, she just mimics the powers, but then 4 minutes she's starting to take their powers to like create that like data transfer over and
Right,
stuff like
right.
that. So
Yeah.
yeah. Man, that would suck to have Wolverine's healing power though, because you wouldn't know when it's over. So you'd be like fighting for a little while, probably thinking you could heal, and then you got to be careful because then you're gonna like go take a bullet and you're not gonna
You
heal.
think you'd feel it? You'd like feel your gen,
Yeah, I guess probably
Regen.
you'd feel some sort of some what?
some regen.
Some regen. Yeah, I feel like you'd feel something. You feel if you got Logan inside you feel something. I feel, you know.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit sturdier, a little bit
Yeah.
angrier.
There was one thing I had to shout in the beginning of the fight. You had Blob, who they come to, and he's eating a bunch of vanilla ice cream. This really
Yes.
bugged Emily because he said Tutti Frutti. Tutti Frutti is like a different type of snack, so she was really bugged that he was saying that while eating vanilla ice cream.
I think he's lost all sense of like taste buds. He's just.
I
eating
think
shit.
so. And then unfortunately, one choice I didn't like is they kind of kept letting him get the upper hand on Storm, which was weird. At one point, Storm like blasts him with like electricity. He just swats her. And then another time, he takes like a vanilla ice cream basket and just throws it in Storm and knocks her down.
The
So I
word-
thought Storm got taken down a few notches in this episode, unfortunately, because Blob was very OP for moments.
It's funny you mentioned that like that bugged you because the part that bugged me about that was right before he threw the ice cream. What does he say to Storm? He's like, "I'm not sharing. This is mine. Get your own." And then he whips that right at her,
He
literally
shares.
giving it to her and is sharing it. And it was just like, okay, maybe if the
probably an
bucket's
empty one,
empty,
though.
no,
Yeah.
no, you could see it.
Okay,
I
there you
checked
go.
too. I was
checked.
like, yeah, thumb down from that one.
Enhance AB repeat on the ice cream bucket.
AB repeat. That's what I did.
Yeah.
When Captain, or sorry, I keep saying Captain Marvel. When Miss Marvel
Carol
is
Danvers,
going
the
That's
safe
Ms.
to
to
that
you.
base, she essentially goes there. She takes a plane and then leaves. What was she doing there? What was her mission? What was she trying to accomplish? I was very confused about why Miss Marvel was in this place. Was she just stealing a plane?
I thought she was answering the call because the other people were like stealing the plane, right?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, because what happens is it's the pilot, and Rogue goes up there and she's all flirting of just like,
Yeah,
oh,
right.
I've never seen one of these before. So I think Kirkman's right that she's stopping the theft. I think.
Is it because
Okay.
she's like a pilot? She's like the first responder on these.
I
like,
know
That's what I was
planes getting
wondering.
sealed in
I'm like,
America.
Is this some
anymore.
sort of She just wants to go for a fly, like doesn't want to fly around or something like that.
She's
It's
just
kinda weird.
she's just at airports, just waiting for a plane to be stolen.
Even though she can fly on her own, but
yeah. But I think that's what it was. I think she was stopping their crime.
mm-hmm.
And I don't know what they were wanting because it felt like Mystique just wanted Miss Marvel to get there. So it felt like they were doing a crime to get Miss Marvel because I guess all America knows, hey, if you still playing, Miss Marvel's coming for you. And then it was to take on Miss Marvel. So
Yeah. I love Rogue's green suit. Looking
yeah.
good over there.
Mhm.
yeah,
Rogue has some spicy moments in this show generally,
yeah.
but okay, we got to talk about this. Xavier and the mind wipe. We just talked about the name part, which is weird, but also he just like instantly does it without her consent, like the power, like messing with her mind, giving her this new life, like just forcefully adopting her. Of course, we don't really see exactly what happens after that. We talked about, I feel like in season 1, how Xavier just a different guy here than what I'm used to from the movies, where he's not just like a good-hearted, like almost like grandpa sort of guy. Instead, there's like a sinister edge to him, not a Mr. Sinister, but like a sinister edge to him. To me, this was like a very weird and creepy and like boundary crossing thing for him to do, and just so quickly. So that really rubbed me the wrong way, in a way that like makes Xavier a more interesting character, right? Because he's almost like he's doing bad things, but he doesn't convey that to the team. He'll just like do what he thinks is right for the good of the world and stuff like that. But I was really taken aback by his decision in that, even though it's a short scene. I was still taken aback by it.
And I would say what you described is honestly for a majority of the part, especially when they introduced him in the 60s, or like I think maybe it's 80s somewhere in there. But whenever they first introduced him in those earlier issues, he's not like a nice individual. So like like this is closer to, even now they've kind of reverted him back. I feel like after Patrick Stewart, they kind of made him the more like, oh, I'm Xavier. But the past, I'd say almost half decade now since Powers of 10 and House of X, he's gone back into that. Like, he's our leader, but can we trust what he's doing? So
even James McAvoy kind of plays him like an asshole a lot of times too, right?
So he is a bit more edgy in this way, because there is times where you're just not supposed to agree with him, and I think they also do that because then anytime Magneto comes up, you're okay, is Magneto on the right this time? Because Xavier's made some mistakes and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, yeah. Yeah, and even and technically they do that. It's not a great movie, but X3 with Femke Jensen, they had him take out her whole memory because it was to like stop the Phoenix from getting her, but he just wiped her without permission and stuff like that. So even in that movie, it's just I think it's just because Patrick Stewart's just such a lovable guy. Even when he's like tells you bad news, it's like, oh well, it's Patrick Stewart. He had a good reason to do it. But yeah, he's made some mistakes, this Xavier, and he made sure he keep the boyfriend thing in there though. You know, you're gonna relive that, not tell her, hey, don't touch people. It's like, oh yeah, you know that first love you had that you comatose? I'm gonna keep that memory in there for you, which I get.
It's a good life lesson, right?
I get. That's why I get it. But poor for her. You know, this is like the third time we've seen this flashback. Clearly, it pops up in her mind. Like,
turns out that was like Xavier's nephew or something. He's like, you're gonna remember you killed this guy.
That was Tyler. That was Cable's son.
You killed Jimmy Xavier. Anything? I think I got all
I got
my
a couple.
notes.
Got a couple
go
things to shout out here.
'em.
When Rogue is first tripping out, getting possessed, and man, this X Mansion just goes through so much abuse. But she just goes from like the first floor, like all the way up, like through every single floor. And I could not help but just laugh in this moment, because it's just like every X-Men member, it seems, is just like in like at that hole. Like they all just witnessed it because they were in a room that Rogue just like flew by. It's Scott and Jean. They're like right beside each other, and like all the X-Men are like right there, and he's like Jean, get Storm to follow her, and Storm's like right there. It's just like she could probably hear that. Like I just thought that was a little unnecessary, but anywaes,
Scott doesn't talk to the
hairs.
team. He tells Jean to talk to the team each time. He's like, "Can you tell Logan to pick up his shit?"
He's like right in front of him. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell him, give me that umbrella?
And then continuing on from that moment, you know, thanks to Jean, she told Storm to follow Rogue. So Rogue's like following her. And there's one moment when I always forget that they're in like New York or in that area too, because we always get to the Statue of Liberty, whether it's the live action movies or now in the TV show. Winchester, is that what it is?
Yeah, something New York, Winchester. Yeah, that's where Xavier's mansion is. Yeah.
Ah, yes, the rich part of New York.
Of course.
So
Lots of umbrellas.
yeah, she's like following her, and then finally like gets her at like the Statue of Liberty. They're like quickly talking, and then like the possessed Ms. Marvel comes at her, and then she just like flies off again. I just found it so funny because like Storm doesn't move at all in that moment. She takes the time to like go on the radio, and it's like, Scott, she left. I'm gonna keep following her, and then it's like, okay, over and out, and then she like starts her fly. I'm like, you could have told
Say
her
that
on the way. Yeah, like,
but
she's out of sight now. Like, you
fair
can't even
enough
see her.
though. To their benefit, I've had this idea where there's many times where I've taken a call while I'm biking, and the person's like, "What? What are you saying?" So imagine on the radio. If
That
Storm
is
has
fair. That's a good point. The wind at that height too.
Yeah, and then I
That's
just
an
have to
X
pull-
radio though. That is no regular radio.
That's true. Yeah, they got a black. But like Xavier, look how much he's paid for and stuff like that. But no, I'm glad you showed out the floors, because I was in gas. Like, oh my god, she just took out every floor, and luckily they didn't care about that. But man, just multiple holes just there. You know, damn.
Maybe that's why Scott couldn't talk to Storm, because it's just so windy in that area. The radio wouldn't have picked it up. Gene, get a hold of her.
Yeah,
It's like,
and
fuck you get a hold of her.
big episode, and also there's another episode coming up later on too. There's 2 episodes where Jean kind of like saves the day, which I'm happy about, because much like Beast in that first season, she was just kind of there as like Scott's like ward. She was just around to, I guess, talk to the team for Scott, but like she was just around, right? And had some conversations with Xavier, but I like that this one, she's the one that links, Mystique, Miss Marvel, Rogue to all do this like big battle in her brain and stuff like that. And Jean's like this coach of like, well, don't go too hard. And I like that she gets to be the one that can do what the other X-Men can't for Rogue, right? They can't get into her mind and help. So I like that Jean got that highlight.
Yeah, I'm
For
glad
sure.
you shouted that out.
There is Jean is very useful, obviously, with her telekinesis power, especially one that can even like wield Cerebro. I feel like that's just such a important thing, because only Charles can do it, right? Other than her, I guess.
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
probably
At
other
this
people.
point, yeah, but
Other
at this point in the
telekinesis
show,
people.
it's just these 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Logan's not getting in there to try and find
And
Rogue.
I feel like I feel like I just accept that Jean is like incredibly powerful, but this is something I forgot to mention in the last episode, when the Blackbird is like falling off the building, and all of Jean's power is just like used to like keep it from falling, and she's doing really good. She's slowing down the fall. At one point you see it like fully vertical, like going down the building. Thankfully at that point Rogue is finished fighting Cable, and she just like comes over and like picks it up really quickly, and it's just like, it totally just changed my whole like perspective on like the power levels. It's just like, I think there's like, I always thought Charles and then like Jean, because she's just so powerful with like the mental capabilities, but it's like, man, Rogue's probably stronger than Charles, like at this point. Like I just, every time that she gets to showcase her power, she's just so up there. And again, I completely agree with what you said, Travis, earlier about like, if they want to get Rogue into the MCU, just fucking do this episode, essentially. Like I want to see that epic moment of like, oh, who's coming to kick Carol's ass or whatnot, and then you get, especially if it's like a similar look and everything. And
that door opens,
that,
Kiki Palmer's there, and
baby,
I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
On the power of it too. I mean, remember back to that Gambit episode. I think that was earlier this season. Like when Jean's popping off with her mind tricks there, when she's talking to that weird dimensional person and trying to share this information. Like even when she does that, which is like, okay, she's using like maximum of her power there, it like knocks her out too. Whereas Rogue, she can do this all day. Like there's nothing that's going to stop her from continuing to fight. She's been thrown into so many different surfaces and she just gets right back up again. So I think even just to speak on the power levels there, although I feel like with Jean, I'm guessing we're going to go off the deep end and do the Dark Phoenix route at some point in the show. And I'm curious to see how that affects her powers as well. But I'm glad you guys brought that up. That just seeing Jean get to do more is cool, even though it is still only little bits. But I'm sure we're gonna get more eventually. And I found it funny too that during that sequence when she goes into the mind and like connects Miss Marvel and Rogue so they can have the interaction, Jean is just like a giant floating in that weird space, which I thought was a very strange choice. I didn't really understand why she had to be there at all, but why they chose that visual for her, I thought it was just kind of a funny
She saw
choice.
Apocalypse, what he did in that last
Yeah.
episode. She's like, I'm going to do this.
Hold my beer. Hold my umbrella. Watch
that's
this.
sweet.
Hold my umbrella.
What is this?
So
For
good.
stopping the rain?
Dylan, you reminded me of something when you were talking about just Jean having that like that end game, like super potential by the end. It reminds me of those like Fire Emblem characters that you get that is like a villager or something. And you're like, this character's gonna be so useless, but then you spend the time and they end up just like the potential on them is just through the roof. That's definitely Jean. She's a late game champion.
Oh yeah. Oh well, yeah, definitely. We'll get there because when you get to Phoenix Force, she's like S tier.
That's next season, right?
characters.
That's early next season.
I think it might be if you look at the episodes. So yeah, and I'm excited for you guys to finally see a well done adaptation of the Phoenix Force, because like if I recall, it's like a 10 episode arc, because it's like the Phoenix Force, and then like they take their time. They don't rush it into, oh, Sophie Turner's gonna get red eyes at the end of this movie, and now she has the Phoenix. God damn Fox, but jeez, they had it twice, 2 opportunities to, and it's gonna suck because I don't think Feige's gonna want to touch it because they did it twice badly. One day, I think, like one day. But anything else on Rogue's Tale?
No, sir.
2 out of 2 for me, or 2 thumbs out of 2, whatever. What highest mark you can give it? I give a Rogue's Tale that mark. You know?
I agree. 2 heaping thumbs.
2 heaping thumbs.
Yeah, I'm doing 2 thumbs.
Yeah.
Heaping.
2
both as well.
heapings.
Two
I'll do
Miss Marvel.
I'll do 1.5. The screaming was too much.
Okay.
It shot me down a
Ooh.
full half thumb. So I
Damn.
apologize, Rogue.
Scare the dog.
It scared. Yeah, it scared everyone in the room.
Beauty and the Beast is next at episode 10. Beast falls in love with Carly, a blind patient of his, which I feel like we met her before, didn't we?
I don't remember.
She
I
seemed
thought-
a little familiar.
Because I
So-
thought we talked about that, how like he was dating a blind, and like that was his way of, because she can't see him, so he feels comfortable. Maybe it was just like a minor
I
episode.
feel like
where
we
he
said
got
so
out,
little
but
screen time of Beast that I
True.
can't recall that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The Friends of Humanity attack. This is gonna be a good one. Group attack the hostile Beast is working, resulting in Beast losing his job, partially thanks to the pressure from Carly's mutant-hating father. Wolverine is enraged that the anti-mutant group would attack the hospital for the blind, and Jean tries to calm Wolverine down, telling him the situation would be approached delicately. Taking her advice, Wolverine masquerades as a mutant-hating human named Logan to infiltrate the group. Couldn't even went with James, his real name. He went with Logan. He talks to Graydon Creed, that's the whatever bad guy Creed, regarding his plans to exterminate mutants, and recognizes him as Sabretooth's son, which, again, a lot to talk about here as far as why did he
So
put that together.
Logan's nephew, essentially, right?
Well, no, in this continuity, they're not related. So
Oh, okay.
it's been on and off. But I think most continuity, they're just the buddies that, rivals at Weapon X. But they have been.
Okay.
I think there was one relationship where Sabretooth was like his father. So kind of depends. But I think most of the time, I'd say operate with the idea that they're just rivals and stuff.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Carly gets kidnapped by thugs from Friends of Humanity. Beast and Logan infiltrate the group to rescue Carly, expose Creed's mutant connections to the members of the Friends of Humanity who desert Creed. Carly is successfully rescued, earning the gratitude of Carly's father. So, Kirk, I'm going to start with you because when we're doing our overalls, you were giggling. I think we all knew what you were talking about. So, big episode here. Big Beast showcase. But yeah, what did you think of Beauty and the Beast?
Big Beast showcase. It's funny. Because I was just like watch them on like my TV, and then it would just be like next episode. I would click that. So I didn't see like any of these episode titles or anything.
Oh, yeah.
So I watching it, I'm like, oh, all these parallels to like this is just basically Beauty and the Beast, and sure enough, that's the name of the title.
Yep.
So very fitting.
And now it's on Disney Plus. Look at how it all worked out. Yeah.
I quite enjoyed this episode. I think it had a lot of ridiculous moments because it's really just trying to go over the edge of like this is the most extreme of like these racist individuals and like what they're willing to do.
Yeah.
And then you have like the super like bigoted father. It's just like I don't even care if this is like I love my daughter, but I don't even care if like whoever made this, I don't want to make
Get
it
him
like
out of
near
my
the room.
sight.
Yeah, just like so extreme. So that is like a little bit. They're getting their point across, but I'm like,
Because it is
probably
a show
tone it
that's for-
down a little bit.
It is,
yeah,
but it is like a show for youngins, right? So I feel like they're trying to like. It's not like I feel like that's the thing people watch is like, okay, we can all enjoy and stuff. But when it was on that Saturday morning, I think that's probably why it's
Yeah.
amplified to like try to really hit home of like,
for sure.
hey,
yeah.
prejudice is really bad, kids. Don't do that. And
Yeah,
did
which,
work for
which is
everybody.
totally fair, and
Yeah.
I feel like that whole concept of like the mutants are just looked at as like freaks, to
Mm-hmm.
bring up that term again, and just like that like closed-minded ideology. I feel like that's a very important like concept that the
Mhm.
X-Men just tackle in their stories. So I always appreciate it, but it's just like when they go to that far extreme, I like chuckle because it's just so ridiculous in the moment. But overall, I did really quite like this episode because I feel like there was just stuff going on that I didn't know exactly how it was going to lead to. And then by the end of it though, especially like with the whole Creed thing, like I was just chuckling constantly at that
There's
point
so
when
many
he's
just quote like when Logan's like, "Oh, so you want to exterminate them?" He's like, "You'll never hear me use that term," but it's like, what the hell's going on here?
a lot of ridiculous dialogue, which made it enjoyable because like I was saying, I was just laughing all over the place. And then when it got to the end and this guy's just having a mental breakdown because his former boss.
You're not my father. You're not my
I'm normal.
You're not my father.
I'm
I have
not
no
like him.
hair.
I'm not like. He would say the same line like 3 times in a row, and then he would like say some other quip, and then he'd come back to that first line. It's
Like, no
so
wonder why they
good.
deserted him. He could even explain the situation like, yeah, that's my dad, but I still hate them. They just looked at him like, look how pathetic this guy is. Like, let's get the
Yeah.
fuck out of here.
You're like-
You're not my father.
So that was a wild roller coaster ride, but overall it was a very enjoyable episode for ridiculous reasons, but also like very meaningful, impactful story, as well as character stuff. Because I feel like also it just this was the first episode where it seemed like Beast wasn't really comfortable in his skin, which I feel like is interesting because he's the type of character who seems
In his fur.
like yeah, in his
Yeah.
fur. He's an intellectual, right? Like he really understands that like there's nothing different really like under the surface for these individuals. Like we're all living on this planet. Like let's just all get along. And to Dylan's point, like earlier about how like when he rescued Creed, and it was just like he just is on a different level than maybe I'll rephrase that. Like it's easier for him to have the higher ground and like stay on that as opposed to like getting down to, you know, like Logan just wants to fuck all these people up, which is kind of defeating the purpose. And then, but even in this episode, like you saw the struggle that Beast Hank McCoy was going through of just like I like first it was my family. I don't know all the details about that, but he was mentioning that it seemed like that was a bad exit or something. Like he got discriminated against from his family. I don't know. We didn't really get too much time on that, but he said like
well,
first my family, now
blue,
this.
so they were, and there was
You're a
picture of
freak,
him-
Beast.
Yeah, you really are a freak, Hank. He's just, they're blue, but yeah, and then he had that picture of him with a girl too. So clearly he had probably a girlfriend. I think it was like he was a very smart guy, very lovable guy, and his family liked him. And then when he turned into Beast, everything went to crap because no one wanted to be around that. You know.
Yeah, nice
Yeah.
like military cut too in those
Yep.
photos. Like really,
He's
really
ready to join
good.
the FOH. He was ready.
There's one with him with like a baseball bat too. I'm like, fuck, he must have been just an all-star with like those giant muscles he
Ivy
has.
Leagues.
Hitting dingers, yeah.
He should have stayed. You know, he should he probably got even more powerful with.
No,
the,
he heard the hey mutant, and he was summoned.
yeah, mutant. Is the
You
crowd
will be
cheering for
called
me?
Beast. It's like, oh wow, what a great name, Xavier. Thanks, buddy.
He's like,
I think he
actually
contacted
prefer-
Blob or something. Hey, fat ass.
Yeah.
We'll call her Jean Grey, her name, but we're gonna
Yeah.
call you Beast.
Could we actually change that name? Brings a lot of pain for me. Actually, no Beast. We will not hear anything.
It's a pretty
else.
prejudiced name. I don't like this.
No, that's a good point, Dylan. That's
Oh.
tough for Xavier. Everyone getting these cool nicknames at the meeting: Storm, Cyclops, Beast. You're a monster, aren't you?
Even Gambit, like, oh, that's a pretty cool name, but yeah,
Yeah.
just call him Beast.
Rogue's a cool name. Beast, that's just like an insult. Someone would call him. Someone would just call him Beast as an insult, which I'm sure that's the story. Like he takes it on as like a way to like bring it up, but it's just in that context funny. So
I really enjoyed this episode as well. For me, just once again, everything in this run of episodes is great. I've been wanting more Beast. We've already been getting into more in the second half, but to have the Beast centric episode was really great. Just a kind of a heartwarming episode, or I guess heartbreaking maybe at the same time, especially with the way this thing ends. But then contrast that with just the insanity that is the FOH and all these moments that we've already talked about because we can't hold back on it. Another great episode for me. I'm really glad Beast finally got his episode here because we've got like Gambits, we've got Rogues, now Beast. There's Wolverine's had like I feel like multiple, but I guess particularly when he went out to the wild again in the Arctic, wherever that was. So yeah, I feel like everyone's getting their due here. It's funny, we're talking about Beast a lot here. I feel like Jubilee is the one in the second half of the season that just like, where is she? She's even like this big moment in the finale. She's like just not present at all. So I was a little confused by that. I think I'm okay with it because we've got so much Jubilee time, whereas season one, we just like never got any Beasts. So we just like, where is this guy? But yeah, that is a weird thing. But Travis, you're reacting to that?
even my 5-year-old daughter, there's later on the season she appears and she's like, we haven't seen Jubilee in quite a bit.
Yeah,
Like she literally,
that's funny.
she as a 5-year-old, and she's still like a smart kid, but still like she picked up on, we haven't seen her in a few, she said some term, but she just acknowledged that Jubilee has just not been around, especially probably it's because she's watching every episode with me. And like you talk about Dylan, she is so much in that first season, but it just feels like they just have nothing at all for her to do here at all, like with all these stories and whatnot, and give her something. And I guess we did get something a few episodes ago because we're watching them in parts with that Colossus episode, right? She was kind of palling around with Colossus and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
but even then, it's just not deep dives. But no,
Well,
good point. Because
I think part of it is they're trying to protect her. She is still young.
Yeah.
She doesn't really know how to use her powers super well at different times. So that's how I kind of hand wave it. I say that, okay, they intentionally left her back. Someone's got to man the X-Mansion, keep an eye on things. and we might die on this mission. So like, obviously they're not going to say that, but that's how they feel.
You
So
are
they're
You're
not
on the
gonna
front
bring-
line, Jubilee.
So they're not going to bring her along, and maybe she's messed up something. So I guess I don't need an answer, but it is a bit puzzling at times, especially when like Gambit might be in an episode where there's a bunch of X-Men doing stuff, and he like never really gets a scene that's like meaningful, but they'll still have him there. And maybe it's because she doesn't have a deep character combination with someone else here. Like she had that moment with Beast in the virus episode, but yeah, I feel like other than that, she's kind of absent here. But I'm not really missing her because I we'll get her back. I'm fine if she takes the back seat. There's even other episodes where like, yeah, Gambit or Storm just might not be in the episode at all. You don't even notice. But when it's a whole back half of the season and Jubilee is gone, you start to notice a bit more.
Taylor's happy Jubilee's gone.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, honestly, I totally forgot about her until Rogue was stripping out and flew through the ceilings. And like, oh, there's Jubilee stepping out of one of the rooms, looking through the hole. But yeah, with this episode, I think I totally lost my train of thought thinking about the previous episode now.
Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast.
Beast.
Thank you. I really liked it because I think, like you guys have said, we haven't gotten a lot of Beast, and just to kind of see this emotional side where the roles switched, and you have Wolverine playing this intelligent, scheming kind of thing in a good way, and then you have Beast that's just going totally like rampaging and stuff like that, and this is the line too from Wolverine where he's like. Well, my new friends get to go meet one of my old friends. He's just being so like sneaky about it, and I love his red Cyclops shades too, and his hat and all that. And even when he's sitting down and having that meeting with Creed too, like, oh, I knew a Creed out in Kentucky working the mines out there. No,
Oh yeah,
I'm
because he
from
tells
Canada.
them, my family's from Canada. So
Yeah.
was I, Bob.
Oh yeah.
Creed's
That's
this
so funny.
world falling apart in front of his eyes.
Yeah, I was really curious what like the plan was, and I honestly thought like at first Jubilee just had this camcorder and was recording everything, like the hero or Friends of Humanity just being jerks as always. But as soon as the Sabretooth came in, it was like a documentary, like Sabretooth, the so and so mutant with all, this hair and
It's
everything.
like a Pokedex, like read off. Yeah.
Like a Pokedex, yeah. I was not expecting the turn with Creed though, and just that absolute shift and him being on his knees, him rapid firing the hologram and the friends. I think this is disbanded Friends of Humanity because they thought
Yeah, they're X-Men supporters now.
Yeah, Friends of X-Men. That's what they'll call the new group.
The Fox. They're Fox.
I find it so strange when like how Logan like gets their attention to like like I don't know, it was weird. Like I feel like he could have just knocked on the door, introduced himself or whatever, but he like climbs up on like the fire escape. He's like slides
The shit out of himself.
Yeah. He's like Jim Carrey in Liar Liar before that courtroom
Yeah.
scene when he beats
Yeah.
himself up in the bathroom. Like I also feel like one hit against the door would have been fine, even if not knock, just like run into and then fall. He like and I get it because he get healed, but just like it felt like he was kicking the shit out of himself. Like it felt like he legitimately was concussed on the ground. And he's like, "Oh, filthy mutants!" And they're like, "Yeah,
get this guy inside."
Yeah, get him in. He must be one of us." But yeah, it's just like he beat himself up way too much. But again, he can heal, right? So why not? I guess.
That was like I was trying to figure out like what he was really doing because he bangs on the door trying to get in. I think okay, they're gonna let him in, but no, yeah. All of a sudden, next shot, it's like up above shot, him on the railing, like punching his fists into the railing, he throws himself off, really trying to like follow what he was doing. I liked when he goes in to confront Creed, and Creed is so caught up with Carly doesn't even fathom to look at the door and see these huge blades going through the doorknob like area, and then Wolverine steps in. He's like, "Hey, what is it? What does he say? Like new recruits aren't allowed in here, or something like that."
Oh yeah.
Get out of here, rookie.
Yeah.
Dropping line.
Yeah.
And even then, there's times where I can't remember. They pick up on it, but they at one point, like Wolverine has his clothes out, his clothes off, his
clothes
claws
off.
Yeah, I'm not my father. Yeah,
Look what
But
he
has
did to me.
He has his claws out, and the FOH is like talking to the other mutants of Wild Wolverine, but then they're like, hey, like they don't even pick up right away that Wolverine has his claws like enacted and stuff. But FOH, what do you expect? So
Yeah,
no,
not a lot of brain cells going on.
yeah, no, this was a good one. I liked it. I don't know if it's like my favorite of the bunch, but I like it again because we get more in Hank. I think I like it more for the comedic stuff of Wolverine / Logan's journey, the FOH, everything, that conversation between Creed, and even then he would have thought like, how come Wolverine's never thought about this with like the Creed connection? Like he's not. I imagine he's not met many people with the name Creed, but here he finally puts it together and stuff. So no, I think this was an enjoyable one, and to see Beast in different light. Like I think there's two moments that I really enjoyed with Beast. Is one in the middle of the episode where he's pretty much just breaking down. Like we talked about the books and stuff, but like he just like I think this is the first time you see him solemn and downtrodden. Just like he feels like he's like Rogue last. I guess it was early. Was it this last season or earlier this season when
With
the
the Cure.
Yeah,
I think it was last season.
I felt like it came out like he was. If it came out around this time, he would have taken it. Like he felt like he was that low where before he was like trying to do better for mutants, but he was so low. And then the other times when Carly gets kidnapped and they go to the FOH, man, we've never seen Beast this ferocious. At one point, he just gets there and he's just tearing through people. Of course, no blood or killing stuff, but like he's just throwing people around. You just see a shadow and she's like boom, boom, boom. Like he is on another level. And it, like again, lives up to the name Beast and all, but like it shows again, okay, he's usually the pacifist. He's usually taking the route of science and conversation, and it's probably a good thing for other people he does, because when he takes the act of violence, and maybe that's why he also stops himself too, because he can know what he can possibly do to these people. So really good Beast showcase episode with some good laughs along the way. So is there anything specifically on the FOH or Creed? Because we already talked about overall openings, but we should talk about him. Anything more as far as Logan shaves just like he keeps his sideburns, but he shaves his stubble, so that's why he looks like a little bit different. And he puts the hat on and stuff, so he gets in there. But
I think Creed is definitely going to come back. I hope to God we get the Sabretooth and Creed like dynamic between them, because no way Creed's out. He's gonna come back with a vengeance.
You're out, Creed. The FOH talking to you in the boardroom meeting. You know how much I've sacrificed? He's not my father. Yeah, I can't remember. I think the FOH will probably still stick around because they're always like good, generic, bad. Like, okay, anytime you need the mutants to like fight bad humans and stuff. But it looks like this was done for them because they just leave him there. One, because again, it was freaked up. But that was the big revelation that Sabretooth is his father, and he's not a mutant, but he still comes from mutant genes and stuff like that. And again, not a good week for Mr. Creed here.
Yeah, that twist was weird to me because I guess I hadn't really thought about exactly what the connection was between Creed, between this Creed and Sabretooth. But like I knew there was some connection there, and we just hadn't really acknowledged it yet. So you're right, Charles. It is kind of weird that Wolverine just like finally puts two and two together. Yeah. So
as like Sabretooth's main rival, it'd be different if another X-Men was like, "Hey, Creed," but like he's fought Sabretooth almost like 3 or 4 times already, and they've gone back decades now. So
so that the way they frame it as a twist in the show was kind of weird to me. It didn't really work. Like I don't know, why not just give him a different name, or maybe he only goes by his first name. They just call him Victor or something like that. I don't know. I feel like there could have been reasons, but I also don't hate it either. But then I do think that moment, the reveal where they're showing the hologram of Sabretooth, I mean, obviously the hissy fit is great, but even just the plot element of it, I like that, because once again, that's kind of Beast using his brain to some extent. It's not all just massive muscles and claws with him. He still wants to create a better world for other mutants. So I liked all that element, the cheesiness or the actually heartfelt elements of it. I thought were both quite good.
Anything else on FOH, Creed? No. Okay. Let's see here. I'll pull up some other notes.
I got a couple notes. I'll start going off. There's one moment I thought it was actually like really touching when Carly's dad pops off and doesn't want Beast, Hank McCoy, anywhere near his daughter or anything like that. And then Hank McCoy, again, just being the bigger man, like doesn't say that like your dad is a complete piece of shit bigot. Like he's just like, no, I can't be there. Like I have other responsibilities, which I feel like she could have taken the wrong way, but she did not, because they're just in love or whatnot. And then, it's like, no, I'll see you. Like, don't worry about it. It'll all be good. You're in good hands. And then like the last thing that she says, like when he's kind of out at earshot range, is like, all I wanted to see was you. Just a nice, like wholesome thing, I guess, in like a cartoon like this, like we talk about some cheesy lines. Again, it is oriented for kids, but still, like that was a nice little heart tugging moment. Other side of it, another just ridiculous moment that I thought was hilarious was when like the attack on the hospital or the eye doctor, which essentially was like a hospital. I've never seen like
Yeah.
an optometrist's office that scale, but hey,
Very
this
busy.
this
Very
must be
busy.
like the best one, yeah, in the world. But so like Hank like carries her outside or whatever, and like he's like holding her hands, and like like they don't really play on this that like she doesn't know he's a mutant because she obviously knows, but he like is about to like tell her that or something, and she's like, no, like I'm not dumb, like I know what's going on between the mutants or whatnot. But it was just this weird approach where it seemed like Hank was gonna be like, just so you know, like I'm a mutant, I'm not a regular human, and he's like this huge beast man
Bloop, yeah.
who's like furry, and like yeah, like she was just like touching him, so it was a funny and again, it's not like they went that direction that's like, what, you're a mutant? Thank God they didn't, because that would have just been so weird, because she obviously was feeling and all that stuff. Yeah, that was just a funny moment.
There's a really weird moment between the doctor, because I get what they were trying to say, like he shouldn't be there because of the dad stuff. But at one point he says, Hank, you shouldn't be here. And then they talk for a second, and then the dad comes out, or someone comes up from the side, and they're like, should I get rid of him? And that same doctor that said Hank shouldn't be here, he says, no, it's his work. He should be here. So like in a matter of a minute, he was saying you shouldn't be here to like, what do you mean he shouldn't be here? Like, he should be here. It's his work. And it was just, I get what they were going for. He was trying to like protect Hank, but it was just funny. It was so close together. And the other problem I had was they had that fight. He walks out of there. Carly's abduction, very quiet. Very, very, and one woman screams and then they run in there. But at that point, there's other doctors down. The room is a mess. They've spray painted on the wall. No one in that moment was yelling like "Help, the FOH!" Like they just like went in there like a SWAT team, took her and left. So
Very
FOH, I guess.
efficient.
And they're
Yeah,
out before the
that's
cops
what-
arrive. Look, the
planning.
cops are coming, let's get out of here. It was just
Yeah.
so weird.
Yeah, FOH, very quiet, very good at those.
They
Those
spent
missions
months planning this heist.
100%. Right when she gets her eyes back, we're taking her. That's all notes I have for this episode.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to reiterate pretty much what Kirkland said. I don't know if there's much to break down there, but I just love those endearing moments between Carly and Hank. I loved all the dialogue there. None of it felt cheesy. It was very cute and sweet, but also, yeah, then heartbreaking at the end when he kind of does the Spider-Man thing and like lets her go because he knows it's like for the good of her. Obviously the dad, he kind of has this turn around where he's like, okay, thank you for doing this, but he never actually apologized.
No.
That was something I was hoping for. I was hoping he'd go a bit further there and be like not just a total piece of shit after he saved his daughter's life, but
And
at
gave
least
her
he
vision
did,
back, which
Yeah,
was like
he did a
impossible
lot.
without Hank.
Which, okay, I wanted to ask you guys about that. What is going on with Beast and him just working at this hospital? Like, is this just like a part-time job for him? Was this an individual case that they're like, hey, maybe this guy knows some tech and they reached out to him so he came over from the X Mansion? Because I just assumed that he lives and works and does his stuff at the X Mansion. So I was very thrown off that it's just like, oh no, he actually has a day job where he just works at a hospital curing people of their blindness. I was very
This is why we haven't
confused by
seen
that.
him in the other episodes.
Yeah, when he got
No,
out
we
of
hadn't seen him because
prison.
he was in prison. That was why.
That too. Yeah.
No, but then when he got out there, like, you've missed so many shifts, Hank. You
Yeah,
gotta
that's
get back
where he is
there.
in the first half of season 2.
No, I didn't take it as that he like literally like works there. I just think like, okay, and they literally do say the eye stuff is his work, but I feel like it's just he's working on stuff at the X Mansion and he partners with other hospitals. This one in particular, like, hey, I found
Yeah.
this. I could help you here. Maybe scratch my back, scratch your furry back, sort of situation. So like that's how I think. I don't think he's like employed there. Hank McCoy doesn't have a sign-in badge, but I feel like he's partnered with this hospital.
You don't need a sign-in badge when you look like that. It's-
Yeah.
Even with your trench coat, Hank, you can't hide who you are.
Every time he puts on that trench coat and jacket, it's
The
like he
hat
hides
and then the hair
nothing.
just flies out the side of the hat. It's like Wolverine too when he puts on the hat. It's like your hair,
sideburns are-
yeah,
yeah.
just flying out. The
Yeah,
side.
so I think he's just a man of science because right, that's what he was going to be doing before. So I think he still wants to
Yeah.
try and do his. I think just obviously lots of X situations pull him away, maybe to look at this mutant pathogen. Look, am I a clone? Like all this type of is
Yeah.
Bishop from the future. All this type of stuff. That he's like, I guess I can run it through a lab and find out.
Yeah. My last shout out for this episode is that to this point in the second set of episodes here in season 2, we haven't seen what's going on with Xavier and Magneto, but we do get a quick shot here of them getting captured by Amphibious in the Savage Land. So worth shouting out. There's nothing really to break down there. We will finally get our Savage Land episode pretty quick here. But once again, they're just doing it piecemeal, showing you little bits and pieces.
I hinted at it earlier. This was the other moment that I thought I just fell asleep for an instant, because all of a sudden we're in like the Savage Land, and it is so quick, and like there's no like meanwhile, and then it goes to like a nice pan to the Savage Land. Like all of a sudden it's just like them there, and I'm like, oh my god, I like rewind a little bit. Oh no, we're
5
still
years later.
And it had been a few episodes too, right? So it's like, oh yeah, I guess Xavier and Magneto are in Savage Land, still walking around. Who knows how long they've been there for? Weeks, months? How long do you guys think it's been?
at least 100 years.
100 years. Fuck. Wolverine's there, everyone's dead.
I'm at least like a few months at this point, like 3 or 4 months
yeah.
maybe.
I
the vibe I
subscribe
get.
to a 2-3 month.
Okay.
That
realm.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they make it in one episode. They make it sound like Xavier's been gone for so long they've just given up. So
Yeah, exactly.
anything else on this episode?
Mm-mm.
I'm a thumb and a half. That's where I am. Not the full 2 stars, but great showing. Like Kirkland and Dylan talked about, I did like his at the end there. I felt like I was getting quite emotional with those two, and yeah. So
I'm with you. Thumb and a half for me too. That's where I was thinking. Yeah.
I will also go a thumb and a half on this episode.
4 for 4.
Yeah, I'm a thumb and a half. Easy.
2 thumbs down. Yeah. Fuck you, beast.
Yeah. FOH looked ridiculous.
FOH for life. All right, number 11, Mojo Vision. An alien Mojo kidnaps and casts the X-Men, except Gambit and Jubilee, which again, Gwen asks. She's like, where are they? I'm like, they must be a mission. And then Gwen goes,
Gambit's there.
Well, no, they didn't get kidnapped, though. They come at the end to save, but he's not on the actual cast of the show.
Gambit?
Yeah, Gambit's not there. Gambit and Jubilee. Because he shows at the end, but when they're like putting them in little boxes and stuff like
It
that.
was Storm and
There's 6 of them.
Scott, and it was Jean and
Because there's 3
Wolverine.
shows of
Yeah.
2 people each, so there's
Yeah.
6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, then
I'll allow
even Gwen was, I'm like, oh, they're probably on a mission or something. Gwen's like, well, these characters do lots of missions. And then she went back to watching. So as his latest.
It's a good, very astute point.
Yeah, I was like, you're
see.
right. They do lots of missions. It's like, it's just funny. Kids just say things. You're like,
Every
yeah,
week, new
Yeah,
mission.
you're right. I've never thought about it, but they just do lots of missions. As his latest All-Star Galaxy television hit, the X-Men are forced into acting out movie scenes for Mojo's entertainment. Eventually, they're set free by Spiral, Mojo's assistant, and Longshot, Mojo's previous actor, who wants his limelight back. Meanwhile, in the Savage Land, Professor X and Magneto find Magneto's citadel. They encounter Sauron, who appears to be a dangerous foe. Not the Sauron you're thinking if you've never seen this episode. But Dylan, I'm going to start with you because, we haven't talked about these episodes, but you did mention one. You just said episode 11. So I'm going to start with you. What do you think of Mojo Vision and Mojo, who is quite a colorful character in the X-Men universe?
Yeah, I mean, just for the viewers, like, we watch these things that we were doing retros all the time, and we generally don't talk to each other about these things before the cast. We want to save these things, have these fresh thoughts, but there are certain times when I just can't hold. I didn't say much, but I was just like, this episode, boys, is something else. But like, man, I loved this episode so much. This is easily. It's hard to say it's my favorite episode just because there's like a lot of, it's just weird, right? So it's hard to compare it to other ones. But I think this is my favorite episode in these whole 2 seasons so far. This villain is so over the top. He has the most annoying ass voice. Every line of dialogue he spews is hilarious and bad at the same time. The music in this episode is great. I love seeing these different little TV shows with these characters where they get a whole title, intro sequence. So much happens in this episode. And I think for me, it comes down to like I look at my notes and I have to scroll to see all my notes for this episode, which, no other episodes have that much going on. But I just loved everything about this episode. It is so good.
Maybe I'll go next. I think I might be the polar opposite on this one.
Oh, man.
I totally get it because yes, I think the TV aspect and just having these little like one-on-ones was really fun, and like the movie like titles for like starring whoever was going in on the Clash. I thought that was really fun. I fucking hated Mojo so much. It was tough,
blame
and
yeah,
there was so much Mojo in this episode. I hated the look of him. He was so annoying, and it was one of those things where I'm just like, I wanted him to stop talking so that we could just go to like the Clash, but he was, and I get it. Like it's like it's to me, it seems like that's the character. He's like this super gross alien movie producer, which is like representative of I guess really gross movie producers. That's kind of the way I took it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was one of those where I feel like that is the product. You either like it or you don't, and unfortunately, I really didn't like it. But like the overall action was fun, and I think it was also it just seemed really random. Like you have like Gene and and Scott just going to like buy a TV. They're like, yeah, no, we need a new surge protector. You probably never met Jubilee, and then all of a sudden you just meet this alien very randomly, and I think it was just hitting me like all these different things all at once, and then you meet Mojo, and it was just like, oh no, which is funny because when I read Dylan's like comment, it's just like, boys, episode 11. I was like, I can't wait to get there on what you're talking about. And I don't know. I kind of just assumed that you're kind of in my same camp where Mojo was just so annoying. So it is funny that you were the opposite as to what I was thinking. But yeah, not a fan of Mojo, but I think there is some good stuff in here for sure.
Taylor, where are you on Mojo Gate?
So after watching through like a lot of Star Wars Clone Wars with you, Travis, I think we have a pretty good understanding of a filler episode. That's what this is for sure. Until they touch back on it in the future, which at this point I have no doubt they will. But to me, this is filler. We're bringing in an obnoxious sideline storyline with different characters and even comedic music that was very different from previous episodes playing in here. Yeah, I will say though, I did enjoy it, but it's definitely one of the weaker ones I would say probably of this whole arc. Yeah, especially like the only reason the X-Men were saved, to me at least, is because this like star guy was like, I want my time slot back.
Long shot. He's not a star.
Long shot. Yeah. So I thought that's pretty fluky. So yeah, this will be interesting.
Yeah, I'm definitely more on Dylan's side with this one. I think with Mojo, I've had an interesting relationship with Mojo. I like him in small doses. I think there's some X-Men arcs when he's around too long, it can be a little bit grating, but for this when it's a 22-minute episode, I'm down. I think I agree with Dylan. I think it's just how creative it is, and this like happens in the comics, but I love the titles. I love like we get the X-Men theme but done differently and stuff like that. Like there's like an operatic thing. Like I think it's like in the episodes we've gone so far, I think it's like a nice break to there's been multiple two-parters, and especially the next one, like it's a serious finale, right? Of two-part. We've got multiple two-parters. We got Beauty and the Beast. We got Rogue's Tale, like all very serious, kind of depressing sort of episodes. I think this was one like, hey, the writers maybe in the middle of these, like the back half of the season is gonna be a bit more serious. Let's just have a wacky, fun episode, and that's what it is. And that's where again where the X-Men, they are the most, it's kind of sci-fi-ish of, well, maybe I'd have to think about it, but I'd say at the time their creation and for many years, when it got to Marvel, they were like the most sci-fi type of characters. They would go in that, okay, they're superheroes, but they're also sometimes more Star Trek-ish. Now, not exactly like that, but just in the way of like, no other hero is versing somebody that's putting them in a TV show and stuff like that. Like one day you guys will meet the Arcade character who's a similar, like, and Arcade Mojo are very much like that in the fan communities where people absolutely love them or people are like, I don't fucking like these characters at all. They're very obnoxious and stuff like that. But I think it works here. I think if this was like a 3-parter, I'd go, man, they might be a little much, but I think it's like a little episode. Yeah, Kirkland's right of how we get there. If just like Mojo popped on TV, like, hey, you want to join? But I think like the placement of it, and I do like Mojo, but again, it's you don't want to eat too much or have too much of him. But I love the world, I love everything about it and stuff. And this is one where. Not that I want it to happen, but for some reason, if there was a Disney Plus show or a spin-off movie that you could have someone like a Taika direct something X-Men related, Mojo Vision is what the guy needs to do, or something. Like the way I imagine Thor Ragnarok, I'm like, I hope we can get to some way in the world where one of our X-Men ends up in Mojo Vision. I would just love to see it in the MCU. This is like the first time in my life I'd love to see like Jack Black cast as Mojo. Like I'm always like, oh, I don't know much. Like I just look at like, oh, he'd be perfect. So I hope we one day, even if he's just like, I imagine what they'll do is how we just got MODOK and Ant-Man the Wasp. Yes. I think they would do that with Mojo. Thinking. Yeah, he'd be like a side henchman, be a little thing. But yeah, I do enjoy this episode. So, Dylan, you lead us off. Where do you want to start with some notes and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, I'll start by, because Taylor, you mentioned this is like a textbook filler episode, and in that way you're not wrong, because this is like I think the only episode in the season that doesn't have like previously on showing you things that have happened before. We just get right into it.
Yeah. It doesn't progress anyone's solo story either. It's not like, oh, this is the Gene episode about Mojo, right?
Yeah. Exactly. I think that's why I loved it. I was just like immediately stricken by this episode where we have like this hair metal long intro with this character that I've never seen before, and it turns out to be Long Shot, and it's just this really cheesy like 80s over the top action thing, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And then that sequence went on like longer than I was expecting too, where you're watching like Long Shot's television show.
Oh yeah.
So I think for me it like immediately kind of established this thing. But just speaking on like even before we go into the Mojo Vision into that world, I really love that sequence of just Jean and Cyclops going to buy a TV, and they're at this TV store, and for whatever reason this TV store only sells one TV a million times, like rather than having
They're
these
probably there
different-
because Rogue broke it when she flew up through the floors. They probably needed new TV or something like that.
Yeah,
you know?
So there was
something like that.
Jubilee. That's why they brought up the Surge.
Oh
Surge
right,
Jubilee.
you're
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
I don't know if you guys noticed this, but the name tag on the employee that was selling them the TV, his name was Calamari,
I did not notice.
which
that.
is like such
Damn.
a weird choice. Unless maybe that was like the name of the store, but even then, if that was the name of the TV store that only sells one TV, that would be kind of strange. Like I'm going to go to the Calamari store, but I just this whole episode is so goofy and stupid that I just love all these weird things. But that sequence when they're in the TV store and Mojo's like showing up on all the TVs, shocking them. He's shocking Cyclops. Jean's like, you're gonna kill him. Like he's about to die. I don't know how she knows like exactly where the limit is on this.
His HP
But then,
bar.
like, the fact that Cyclops is like individually shooting TVs and just doing nothing because there's a million other TVs. I just love the kind of to what Travis's point, the weird sci-fi element of this, and that they don't need to take the time to really explain it. It just happens. He just lives in this alternate dimension and he can suck people in through televisions, and that's the only explanation you need. That's the only explanation I needed. I'm totally invested in who Mojo is as a character, and like that's a pretty powerful thing when they're actually in his world and he's just this weird like gloopy alien thing on a
Yeah.
little thing. He's maybe not super powerful there, but the fact that he can just interdimensionally connect people and shock them through televisions, which are everywhere, is pretty great. And I guess pretty unfortunate for them that when he encountered them, they were in a store that had 1,000 TVs in it. So he had his ultimate power moment doing his sheaves thing with the electricity there.
I thought it was peculiar how like they destroyed one TV, they got out okay, they were safe, they left the store. But what does Cyclops do? He sprints back in there and just starts blasting all of these TVs. Still gets taken down though, but bold move.
Imagine the owner's like, yeah, I really do hate these mutants. The FOH has been talking about them recently. He's just shooting all this stuff and everything. I have to ask Dylan, is Mojo, does he not have a card in Marvel Snap at all?
He does have a card.
Okay, it's like that guy's card. He had to have a card or something like
his
that.
card is like he gets bonus damage if you have 3 other cards in his location. So it kind of makes sense. Like he wants to bring in a cast of characters, which it's funny that power or like the card effect actually makes sense for his powers. I didn't really realize that in the game because
Yeah.
I didn't dig into it. But yes, he is in there for sure.
That's cool. That's cool.
What is the name of that six-armed lady? I think you said it earlier, but I never caught it in the episode. Like his right, I guess his 6-armed right hand lady there.
Yeah. Spiral.
Spiral.
That's what it says.
Interesting.
Mojo's assistant. Yep. Spiral. Yeah, you get a couple cameos here. You get Spiral. You see Psylocke. Obviously, they're like the actors of that. So you see Super Android. You see the Punisher. My goodness. Like, what a random.
Yes.
I love this show. That happened in the Spider-Man show too. Just like, what a random pick. Especially because like Punisher's in the Spider-Man show like around this time. But it's just such random. Like, you're just going to get Rogue versus the Punisher in this moment. And here you go. And so, well, I can't remember if it was Rogue or Jean Grey. Actually, I'm mixing them up. But, it was fun to have that Rogue, or fun to have Punisher and Psylocke. So, 'cause I don't think-
Jean is fighting Punisher. in
yeah,
that
and it's
moment.
like I'm sure maybe it's happened, but I don't think there's been many times, even in comic books, Jean Grey has interacted with the Punisher or even a Punisher type. So that was a fun pairing and stuff like that. And even Psylocke, because I think you might see her in the future, but Psylocke's one of those mutants that's not in this, like, doesn't ever become a a key character. I think that's the good thing with the revival coming up is there's a lot of characters that now are more popular that you'll probably see in
Yeah,
that,
Deadpool even, right?
Deadpool.
Yeah.
I for sure. Even like we will see Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, but I feel like they have more. Like they have a couple episodes, but I feel like they could end up being like main X-Men and stuff. So the revival there, and I can't. We're gonna. I wonder if we're gonna get a Mojo episode. I wonder if it's true we get those 4 seasons. Oh man, back to Mojo.
I know Kirkland and Taylor would hate this, but this is for me, like every season I want a Mojo episode. Like I want to do this again where we get different television shows, different collections of characters. But yeah, like talking about some of these individual shows, that one is called I Dream of Jean, which is just like such a funny title they have going on there. And then Wolverine's fighting like an alien, like some dude with a blue mohawk. I'm like, is that Yondu? I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, I can't remember. I feel like he is a part of that. I was actually trying to search it up now because I'm like, who is that? And for the life of me, I could not find or figure out. But I've seen it before, so I couldn't pull that one.
I'll keep going here. I got a million notes as of this episode.
Do it.
Rogue Star is the name of this other one, which is maybe the most generic show. But I liked that Rogue and Hank get to go on this mini adventure when they're flying through space, and then like they're chasing down a ship that looked a lot to me like the Guardians of the Galaxy, like the Ravagers, right? Their name that looked a lot like the Ravager ship. So I thought that was funny. And then Beast is saving Rogue from these like reptiles. I think that's when they throw the line, like, oh, I'm gonna fight this repulsive reptilian over here, or something like that. And then Rogue like falls into the sun, like it is. I just love how over the top and stupid everything in this episode is, but that moment in particular stuck out.
Yeah, I like them all because they all feel like a little bit different, and obviously that's what you got to do. But the music, the tone, the sun thing threw me for a vibe because like I knew that they weren't gonna actually kill them, but I was just like, man, that's not a way to go. But yeah, I liked the mini pairings here, and it was fun. Again, I just love anytime they go with the crowd because the crowd's reacting in such an over the top way and stuff.
Sorry, you go ahead, Kirk.
I was just gonna say there was one character in the crowd because it's like all like ridiculous, like different types of aliens or just different shapes and whatnot. But there was one character I should have taken a photo of him because he just looked like the most generic like white dude with like just like white hair, and he was wearing like a doctor's robe, and he was just in the crowd and he was like this.
Yeah,
he was like clapping, and I was just like, that guy stands out because he looks so normal compared to everyone else.
I
wonder how he
got
got
next
there.
one. That's how they reveal. They do like the Mystique slowly sauntering off in the background. That's how they reveal their villains.
I thought you were gonna call it that. I swear I saw like Green Goblin in there. I'm like, what is Green Goblin doing in this audience? But Travis, you mentioned that. Like, I love how at one point you're talking about how the audience is bored. They pan to the audience. Everyone's just reading a book. They all like brought a book.
Look at them.
Every person is the exact same like copy paste animation of them just reading these nondescript books because they're bored of the television show. Like, it's so stupid. But
what did he say? Like, what a waste of trees.
Yeah, what a waste of trees. Yeah, they're reading instead of watching. Yeah.
And then the other show is Miami Mutants with Cyclops and Storm, where they're cruising around on a boat. I loved this one, like the kind of pastel pink waters and the turquoise skies. I'm just like, man, I want like them to go to this kind of Vice City, Miami setting for an episode with this kind of pastel aesthetic. Like I loved the look of that, and that was maybe the most generic one where they're just cruising on a boat. They like go in a hyperdrive and like flying around and stuff like that. But man, I loved all these little shows that they came up with.
I will say that one to me, it felt like Cyclops and Storm got so invested in it. They were being attacked, and Storm was like, "I'll take out the aerial attackers," and like Cyclops like hits the button that says "push me" on it, like we're gonna boost. Like they were living and breathing this life and death for them.
Yeah, they put a lot of trust in what that button did, and this might be like my individual favorite thing in the episode is I think it was right after Miami Mutants, and Mojo's like looking at the ratings, and he's like, I'm getting numbers here that the mathematicians have never even heard of. And you look at his screen of ratings, and there's just like this long division and like numbers and symbols and stuff, and just like this rating is not conceivable by mathematicians at all. Like just it's so good.
I hope one time when we do get to the MCU that the way they like even just preview Mojo Vision is we go on some planet and some people are just watching a screen like he's like what would it be broadcasting out there. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I hope we get something like that in the background, because I remember it would have never happened at that time, but I remember that's what everyone was thinking with WandaVision too, because the whole TV aspect and everything. For a while, people thought, oh, it's gonna be Mojo. I was like, I don't think we're gonna do Mojo for WandaVision.
That seems like a special presentation, like a Werewolf by Night
Yeah.
holiday special. That seems
I
like
think
maybe
so,
the good
yeah.
vibe to go for like a Mojo related thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if
love
people
that
are going to the theater for Mojo.
For
but,
Mojo Vision. Yeah.
I don't know.
I'd love that as a way, because we already got Xavier introduced. I'd love that special presentation Mojo introduction for the X-Men, because you get all of them except like obviously your Gambit and your Jubilee, but it'd be a great way to introduce like the mains and just kind of have like these curvy, interesting stories that like in this sense, like they were trying to figure out what's going on. It was a good starting point for the characters, and I think that would be a good starting.
You think
point
that's
for
how
an
they should
audience.
introduce the X-Men to the MCU through Mojo Vision? Okay,
it.
I'll
That
push
would be
back there.
wild.
I like Mojo Vision, but I don't think that's the first time. People have been waiting decades to see the MCU, and I gotta tell my parents, oh yeah, go watch the new Wolverine on Mojo Vision. And like, oh, I hate these X-Men. Where's Hugh Jackman?
I love the music in this episode. Like I feel like they went overboard of coming up with some other themes for what is like this television show that's going on, but like it was just like Mario Party ass music in this
yeah.
thing, which I loved. And then even one of these themes, I swear, I guess this came up before. So this like Donkey Kong 64 must have ripped off this episode, but there's like this wah 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 wah. Even like in that game, that's like plays and you see Donkey Kong Island. And it's like this big mountain that's like has Donkey Kong's head, and like that same cue plays when you see this statue of Mojo that's like an island. So I was getting
That's
Donkey
funny.
Kong 64 vibes, Mario Party vibes. So you know I'm instantly gonna love the episode more because of that.
Oh yeah, no, I liked all the music choices. Like I said, there's that one theme of the X-Men I like, but yeah, it helps it stand out from the rest of them, because the music does not sound like anything else that's happened other than when they're in the electronics store, I guess. So
Has Mojo always had the same appearance?
he looks variations of his size. He's here he's a bit more green. He's usually more yellow in the comics, but he's usually yellow, gross looking, head tentacles, stuff like that. There's times where he's walking
eyes
around.
thing that, like-
yeah, he's always like that. So yeah, he's always a
Clockwork
gross looking
Orange.
individual. Yeah, he doesn't look. I don't think there's a hot Mojo out
Okay.
there. So yeah.
All right, just seeing if there's more palatable ones, because he was
No.
tough to look at.
When you see the MCU, he'll be CGI to the yin yang. If he comes up there, they'll be like Thanos.
Make him
so.
sexy and buff and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Henry Cavill. Hey, bringing that name up.
Henry Cavill.
I also love that the end of this episode is, of course, like they don't kill the villain. He gets crushed by a giant machine, but then he's good. But then Mojo is going off. I think he's talking with God, what's the name? His
Long
assistant's name again?
shot or Spiral.
Yeah, well, Long Shot's there too, and Spiral, and he's dreaming of ways to increase the rating. So he's like, okay, we're gonna go to a new dimension. We're gonna get some bigger hair. We're gonna spend less money. He just throws that line in there, which I really loved. But then I love that also just segues into the finale of this season, or the two-parter finale, because he just envisions the Savage Land, which Mojo has nothing to do with what's going on there, but he's just like dreaming of this world, and that's kind of setting you up for the finale. And then you kind of get that quick shot of what ends up being Shawnee, I forget what her name is, being abducted by Sauron is what we see there going into that. So I think that was a good little segue for what is, to Taylor's point, the filler episode, but they somehow found a way to like lead it into our final two-parter of the season.
That was a 10 out of 10 transition. Like I absolutely thought it was perfectly executed.
I love when Scott like wakes up in the TV store. He's just like, "What the hell happened there?" Or like whatever the line was. It was essentially what I was thinking while watching it. It's just like, what the hell just happened there?
Fever dream. Yeah.
Anything else? Dylan hit most of the notes I would have put
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, I was going ham there. Sorry. I just went off.
It's good. It's a high ranking one for you, so go ham. But that's everything for me.
Me too.
I'm a thumb and a half. I'm not a full 2 thumbs, but I enjoy the wackiness of it, so that's where I am. So lots of thumbs or a thumb and a half this episode for me.
I think although like I sound very negative on it, I think I'm still a 1 positive thumb up.
Okay, there you go. I
Because-
was expecting a downer coming. Yeah.
And it's solely just because of like the movie segments of like the characters just getting paired up, and I feel like the pairings too, although they are the X-Men, they all work together. I feel like for the I guess the most part, like we had Beast and Rogue, like that's a pairing. I'm not.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
It's a unique
be
combo.
used. Yeah, exactly. And even Cyclops and Storm, like they are the 1 and 2 of the X-Men, sort of. But like still, just see them on that boat. Like I did like that pairing for sure. The one that makes the most sense, I guess, would be Wolverine and Jean. But yeah, like I like the setups. You guys already shouted out like the music. I thought that was very fun for sure. It was just like every time we went to Mojo, I was just like, ugh, this guy's just gross. I don't like this, which is what they're going for. So it's
Yeah.
like they are doing their job well, but I just
The
received
most
it.
annoying voice of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either a great or awful voice performance, depending
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
whose perspective you ask.
The voice actor killed it. He
Mhm.
brought his A game. Yeah.
Do your Mojo voice again there, Travis? Because you did it earlier. I thought that's actually not too bad.
I don't know if I can. I need to
Hard to
hear-
ask that of some. Of a
Yeah,
man.
I
I
don't know.
know.
I'd have to hear it.
Just do a
but-
monologue
happen.
as JoJo right now.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Damn it! I can't. I'm just sound like a witch. Damn it! You're
It's like a
up.
western. He's like a
The
western
field of
villain.
fields. Hit the button.
There we go. I
Look at
love
the
it.
numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, Kirk. I go a 1 on this. I'm surprised about your 1 because I feel like I was a little bit higher than you, but now I've been allotted to you because I feel like I'm a 1. So
Allotted to you.
0.9 of a thumb, if that's allowed. I'll redo that.
Just cut a little bit off. Yeah.
The amount of thumbs I want to give this thing is a number mathematicians have never conceived of. So that's what I'm giving it.
More thumbs than you got.
Yeah.
There you go. Now we're getting to the final 2 episodes here. I'll put them together because the episode 13 paragraph is very, very small. So I just put them all together here. The episode it's 2-parter finale of season 2 titled Reunion. Professor X, Magneto, and Jean are captured by Mr. Sinister, the Nasty Boys, and the mutates of Savage Land.
Nasty
It is the
Boys.
Nasty Boys. Beast is like, well, at least I'm not called them on the Nasty Boys. God.
I couldn't remember what they're called, so in my notes I wrote the Smelly Boys, but that was
Pretty much.
Close.
May as
Pretty
well.
close. Adjacent.
It is revealed that Mr. Sinister is the shadowy master who has been leading the mutates. Mr. Sinister summons Sauron, who uses his mind control on Professor X, forcing him to send a
not that
message.
Sauron.
Yeah, again, not that Sauron. Yeah, which would be great, but they missed out that. Disney could have bought Middle Earth, but they missed out on that, forcing him to send a message to lure the rest of the X-Men to the Savage Land. The remaining X-Men are aware that they are walking into a trap, but the Savage Land anyway, but travel to the Savage Land anyway to rescue Jean and the Professor, not Magneto. Upon touchdown on the Savage Land, they realize they no longer have their mutant powers. They're captured by the Nasty Boys. Wolverine alone evades capture by jumping off a cliff. He has to team up with Khazar to rescue the others in an epic finale. I'm not sure if I'm gonna go that far for like epic finale, but it was a good finale. But yeah, I think this was I think I quite like this. I'm a big Mr. Sinister fan. I like that it was, we've talked about this with season 1, but this was literally episode 1 and 2. You got introduced to Savage Land, the whole thing, and I like that you met Sinister. It was the end of last season, right? Is when we met him. I
Well, it was like
this
the
season.
post-credit, essentially.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, and then we
I don't think
start
we
with the
see him, do
wedding.
we?
Yeah. We just hear him laugh like, oh,
He just says
the
something
summers.
sinister is
Yeah.
coming. Yeah. something like that.
But yeah, and then we got the wedding. So I like that even though you didn't know he was behind it all, he was behind it all. So I just thought it was weaved throughout when you watch it all together, when we're watching it like this, to the finale. You get the Nasty Boys, you get X-Men and Magneto team up, which is always fun. But I think like more, I just think it takes everything majority from this storyline or the season and takes all the storylines and puts them together. I think multiple characters get moments and stuff like that. So I also forgot to mention I liked in Mojo Vision that Jean Grey does a big saving act again. So again, she's doing good stuff there. But yeah, I quite liked this 2-parter. I think it was a really good ending to the season. So
Mm-hmm. I'm totally with you. I love this. I talked about how I didn't love the piecemeal element of Savage Land, but the fact that we just go there and that's where the whole episode is. I think there's a really clever way that there's kind of 2 stories going in parallel that kind of connect in this, at least part 1, and then part 2 is just kind of seeing that through. But yeah, I loved it in terms of the Mr. Sinister element of it. I think it's all great. Also, when Khazar shows up, Khazar and Zabu is his little homie. those are like two huge cards in Marvel Snap. Like they're
Oh,
very
really?
relevant.
There's a Khazar card.
Because there was a Savage Land. I mean, he was in there from the day one, but there was a Savage Land like month where they added Zabu, and those those characters have like a synergy. They're very relevant, and like Khazar's one of my favorite cards in that game too. So instantly when I saw him, I'm like, I know who this guy is, even though he's some weird deep cut, and I just like popped off when he showed up, and so I was so down to see all of that stuff.
What about
going on.
Sauron? Was he in there?
Sauron? No.
No,
yeah, I
okay.
don't think I don't have him yet. If he is
One
in there.
day I
haven't
bet
seen
he
him.
will. In the comics, he's like not like a big deal, but like the idea of this pterodactyl who can like read minds was always a big thing and stuff. But
They do have Shauna, Shawnee, whatever her name is, Khazar's like wife, partner. She's in there too, actually. So
I'm getting
pretty
closer
crazy.
and closer to downloading this thing. I can't believe they have fucking these character cards. I know they have that Savage, but still, it's like you could easily skip past that. That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Kirkland, was this a fresh air for you after the Mojo Vision? These 2 episodes.
It really was. Yes.
Good.
I love the transition from the last episode in here, and also it was just like this thing where I feel like every time we go to Savage Land, it's just like, oh, here's Charles and Magneto just doing their thing, and initially it's like it's kind of annoying that we just don't get time with them, but at the same time, I think just having them in this place and like although we don't have like the camera on them, we just like we know that they're in the Savage Land, and I feel like for myself I'm able to just kind of this is kind of where they're really bonding. Because for me, like just having my X-Men experience, I know that those 2 characters have an interesting dynamic where they are clashing a lot, but there is that mutual respect a lot of the time, and like they do seem to have this interesting bond or kinship, whatever word you want to insert there. And I think just every time like we go to them, like they are fighting for their lives to stay alive, and I do think that does bring people together. So just like whether they're trying to survive or running from stuff or kicking ass in the Savage Land, I'm just like, like in hindsight, I like that they went through this, because now I think we don't have to spend like a full episode or maybe multiple full episodes of having these like big Charles or Magneto, maybe a clash, but it ends in this like dialogue where they're like kind of seeing eye to eye, but it's complicated, so it's not working out. Whereas for this stretch of episodes, like they've been bonding for, as we were trying to speculate, for like months now of just together. So I think going forward, I'm going to be carrying that knowledge of like, like they really are tight, because their origin from this series, I don't know how accurate that is to the comics or anything like that, but it was different from what I was familiar with, and I'm kind of just pulling from the live action movies where like you have the McAvoy Charles that like approached him like way back in the day, and like just understood his trauma, and then like again like they do find that bond. So for me, for like bonding purposes, I actually like that they were just stuck there together. And I love Magneto's look so much, the animated series. I love his long hair. I love his costume and everything. So yeah, like that aspect of it, I actually quite like their just isolation there. Obviously, I would take more because I'm just a glutton for those 2 characters. And yeah, just while I'm watching it too, I'm just like, I can't believe how blessed we were to just get Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen like in those roles together. Just like, man, like for how tight they are in real life and like those types of characters. Just so fantastic.
Can't
So
go
yeah,
episode
I love
without
these.
mentioning the Magneto hair. You know, every time the helmet comes off.
It always
Blows.
surprises me. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always longer than I'm expecting, but that's
Yeah.
good.
Taylor, good end of the season to you.
I'd say it's a good end. Yeah, I thought it was fitting now, because in retrospect, how Morph sent Magneto and Xavier here, I thought, okay, this is super like oddly coincidental or just peculiar. Like he was supposed to just ship him in an avalanche. There's so much more tucked away in that. And now that we have this, where okay, Morph was just still under the guise of working with Mr. Sinister, I think, okay, it totally makes sense. Mr. Sinister's got his setup here now and all that. So I totally think like that's something I really appreciate with the show, is when they do these things. Like again, like into the Mojo episode, last episode, I'm sure we're gonna get like a follow-up episodes later where it has that nice tie-in and it kind of connects things together. And I really appreciate that level of detail that this show has. So for a finale, I think it was really, really good. I personally enjoyed that we got to see Rogue and Gambit just have that quick moment. Like Rogue was just like she was frightened because she didn't have powers, and Gambit was just super comforting, and they got to share a kiss, and it didn't put him out into a coma or anything like that.
Yeah.
I thought like for sure, like God, like what, like is Rogue just gonna like what is she gonna do? Like let's just like start hugging everyone or just kissing everyone. Like let's just like I can
What?
touch like human. She can touch human
What is
beings.
this?
So
The It book?
she
She
just
takes
wants
off
to
all
start,
her clothes. Like
Yeah.
I'm free.
I've been waiting for. I'm not my father anymore.
Not to that extent, Taylor, but that was definitely one of
Look
the
at
first
me.
things that crossed my mind. When Rogue lost her powers, I'm like, she's got to shag someone. Like, come on. Like she's
yeah.
been waiting her whole life for this, never been able to touch anyone. Like, yeah. It's a PG show, so I get it.
He's got to shag someone.
Wouldn't you want to if you lived your whole life without knowing?
I
what
would.
that
You're in
felt like?
danger. Yeah, but you're in danger.
You can make time.
If it means shagging someone and losing some of my friends, probably not.
But if
You
you're,
know,
like,
I think
about
I've been
to die,
shagged, but
And like
All
It-
the
it
more
does
you're
reason.
just in a
pretty dire
cage, like
situation
why
for them.
not?
yeah, but he can't give up yet. You know, it's not over yet. If
Yeah.
it's full on dead to rights, but she was only captured. You know,
And
so.
and the way that it went with the kiss, I thought it was actually like a touching moment too, because Gambit, like, he wasn't his sleazy comment. Like, it was actually like a very comforting moment. He's like, just so you know, like I genuinely love you, or whatever the line was, and then
yeah.
They start
embraced.
getting into it in the cell. Wolverines, and they're like, just keep your clothes on. What are you doing?
The mutates are like, wait, well, let's see what happens.
The
just
nasty
have like
boys.
a really loud
Let's see
sex
this
scene.
play out.
Yeah, they used some of those screams from Rogue the last episode. It's just, Sinister's like, oh my god, what are they doing? You're not
Oh,
a Summers. Yeah, I want them to do it, not you two. But yeah, I guess we could say, yeah, I love that moment of Gambit saying that. I feel like we were heavy on it in the earlier season, much like Jubilee. I feel like their romance, other than some flirting, kind of took a backseat in this back half. But I think it's just because there's a lot of episodes not focused on them. Like, again, what happened, our last episode of part 1 was a Gambit focus episode about his former wife and Rogue, how kind of fully admitting that she cares for him and stuff like that. So I like that in the finale we came back to this and he said he loved her and Rogue was like taken aback by that and they got the kiss. So that's good. They'll always have that moment. So there's some bonding going on there. And yeah, but yeah, the team just what I love is I liked that it was, again, not only was the Savage Land and Sinister coming together, both the teams were kind of investigating two separate things that ended up being together. Like, one got the message from Charles, and then the other half of the team, like Cyclops, knew about the trap, and they knew that like Jean and everything's been captured. And I'm always a big fan of the love triangle between Jean, Scott, and Wolverine. I love nothing more than anytime Jean is put in danger or captured, and when Cyclops and Wolverine just like, okay, we always have our difference, like, we're teaming up. Like, at the end of the episode, he's like, we're gonna get her back. Like, and just like that way of like, they put everything aside of like, they're gonna go to war to get this woman they love back. And but that's what I love when they go back to the mansion. They both sets of team have to talk to each other for different reasons, but alas, they are the same reason. That's what I love about Sinister. He's just like, got his hands all over these
The
X-Men.
puppeteer.
Yeah, and he's trying to hit them in different ways, right? Of like taking Jean. He's setting them in a trap, which I love that Beast is like, Xavier was oddly had no emotion on his face. It's like, that's
I laughed
always
so
Xavier.
hard at that, in that spot. but like also like the video is so sus. He's just like,
yeah,
come to this coordinate.
it's good to see you, my friends.
He doesn't even say the coordinate. The coordinate's like on screen for him, and he's just like, yeah, exit screen.
I did like,
They're
yeah, I agree.
That's
I
a
like
little
that Beast
suspect.
immediately called it out though.
But like I said, I like that. But like, it's when you think about Xavier in the show, he's always just like, his face usually just has one expression when he's the teacher.
Hey,
but
mutants.
Yeah,
That's what he calls
mutant.
them.
Yeah. But I loved all that kind of interweaving of not only the season, but just, again, the multiple stories this episode. So
Or like that moment when they're like, they go to the mansion, and it's like, I got something to tell you. Like the
I
same
got something
time.
to tell you.
That was
yeah.
funny. Yeah.
And yeah,
it was
I
Beast and Scott together. Yeah.
I totally agree with what you said, Travis, about the Scott and Logan like pairing up. It's a reoccurring thing for sure with those characters, and I feel like I get hyped in those moments because like, oh yeah, like they're putting it to the side, like they're getting they're focusing on the task at hand and what's more important thing. So yeah.
Okay, I mean Travis would have known this, but Taylor, Kirkland, were you guys as shocked as I was when it turned out that the Savage Land is on Earth?
No,
I had to
'cause-
I was like questioning myself. I feel every time we go to the Savage Land because I'm like I feel like we talked about it maybe in the previous season where it's like or whenever they went there, that it's like a Wakanda situation where it's like a hidden realm.
Okay,
But
maybe I forgot we having that conversation.
But like also when I'm watching it, I'm just like, there's just dinosaurs like on Earth right now. Like this is just strange.
Yeah, I've always said I like the idea of the Savage Land. I think even stuff like I know Taylor probably likes the dinosaurs and stuff, and I know some of them are just like mutates. Like look at Sauron, right? Like technically he's like a mutated man, dinosaur mutant, but like and that's again the sci-fi-ness. That's one of those sci-fi things that I think are sometimes too much for me as far as it gets like a little hokey, and especially with it being on Earth is a big deal. But I am very certain there's rumors that that place they went in Eternals where the big like statue ends up what was it, the celestial gets frozen, it's just scooper stuff, but some rumors have been like that's going to become the Savage Land, that there's going to be like some materials from that that thing that's going to like bring mutant stuff down. So I don't know if that will happen in Thunderbolts, but I know we will for sure see the Savage. Oh, we've kind of technically seen the Savage Land. That's that theory, right? In Multiverse of Madness, the dinosaurs. So I think one time you will go there, and again it's like I think it's a take it or leave it thing, but if it's only around for a little bit, sure, you know.
It's just one of those things where like, yeah, I've seen Wakanda, I know how that's done. They have these hidden realms, but it's just so wild of a place that it seems, if it's not another planet, it's like another dimension, because you have these dinosaur or like mutates, whatever you're calling them, and then you have someone that just seems like a regular dude, I guess, that's just shredded with his lion friend, Khazar, I think was his name. And then all of a sudden you'll just be like, oh, there's Sky Riders, and there's like these like caveman people on like pterodactyl mounts. Like this is so bonkers, but for that reason it makes it fun.
Yeah, I kind of figured it was still on Earth. The whole thing being in like a lost land and like was it Alaska or Antarctica?
But like a modern Earth too. It's not like time travel. You were thinking like, oh,
I took it that it was like a Journey to the Center of the Earth equivalent kind of thing, but Marvelized.
Hollow Earth
hidden
theory.
away.
Yeah, I ate all of that up. I enjoy it. So, yeah.
Well, for me, that was like maybe the biggest plot twist of the season when that happened. Like, I love that moment, that connection when they just take Jean there, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And then the X-Men discover that, and it's just a place on Earth. I love that. I guess in terms of the actual logistics of it and how it works in the greater scheme of the world of Marvel, I guess I'd have to think on it more. But since this is a cheesy animated show with tons of goofy shit, it like, I don't know, it didn't even faze me in terms of that way. But yeah, I'm very curious if it does in a meaningful way come to the MCU, how they would choose to like set that up. That could be very interesting.
I think the logistics things that I actually had an issue with was how they just had this like one machine or whatever, and that's like what's disabling all their powers and just giving Charles like his legs back in like the entire realm, even though it's just like this one little area that has the machine. I don't know. It was just something that was a little bit jarring for me to accept.
That can easily be smashed and
Oh yeah, then they're all back and stuff like that.
But it's like it must be a pretty complex machine.
it was bad when he says my legs, he falls, and everyone's like, "Fuck yeah!" Like,
I'm back. Yeah.
Everyone else like legitimately Rogues like gets the straps down, and then I don't care how many times I hear the theme. They show the whole team running at Sinister, and they hit the theme, and I'm like, "Yeah, let's fucking go!" Like, yeah, you're like, I've heard it all day. I'm like, "Yeah, let's go!" But oh no! And everybody else is just endorphins, adrenaline, like top tier life. Oh, God.
I was confused why Beast didn't revert to human form.
I don't know. It was strange though, because you have a lot of other people that look kind of weird too, but it's a very I don't know. It makes no sense.
The purpose for like, Sauron and stuff is because they set it up that like that machine they calibrated to like only work on, I guess, the X-Men, or I guess maybe just they pre-program people who are immune to it, which is a Sauron and crew.
Yeah,
but then,
you're
like,
right.
Everyone
they did give
else
it to,
would be affected by it, whether or not they accounted for it or not. But yeah, I was very surprised when Beast didn't transform. I was like, I'm missing something here. Like, I don't know.
I just assumed it was something. Well, it's not, but I just figured it was something remotely similar to Wolverine's status. Because, like, I still feel like that would even be a mutant ability to force this adamantium blades through, right?
Well, no, because those are just his bones. So, but his bones still, he could do the bone claws before, right?
That's a mutant ability.
Power,
yeah.
And he can still do that. So that's where it's like, shouldn't that just, like, close off and, like, nothing? Like,
the way I've understood it, too, though, is that, like, it blasts through his skin, which for most people that would hurt a lot, like if you didn't have the power, but then he's like instantly healing, so it doesn't like that's why his hands aren't always just perpetually bleeding when he brings the claws out.
But it's still the mutant power to blast it through his skin, right?
Because that's the claws are mutants, right? I did like that in this episode though when he did it for the first time without the thing. He was like, "Ugh!" Like they showed him in pain.
What legs?
Yeah.
My arms. But like, no, I like that they showed
My
him.
knuckles.
Even though again, it's kind of funny when you think about the writing of it. Technically, it always hurts. It's just that they can heal. Like anything, like
Yeah.
even Wolverine says that in the movie. Like it hurts every time. But yeah, I agree with Taylor. It's weird. Like he shouldn't be able. His bone claws should now just be redacted. They should be stuck. They can't pop out anymore. That's part of his mutant powers. But whatever.
That was something that crossed my mind. I think in like the part 2 of the Time Fugitives was when Cable was getting the scoop on all of these X-Men. It doesn't ever mention that like he has these like bone claws. It's just like Wolverine's powers, quick regeneration and like fast healing.
Yeah.
And they don't ever mention that. It's just like that's just what he came stock with.
Imagine if he was Cable prepped for everything, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the fight, and like that's how Cable dies because the little
computer
box
failed him. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't tell me he had claws. Like, sorry, I
And
missed
the
that.
future is doomed, and the show just ends there. Yeah.
Oh, which reminds me, at one point, I love the first time they interacted. Jean, Scott, and Wolverine see Sinister. Sinister's fighting and everything. Wolverine out of nowhere comes from behind Sinister, and he just takes his claws and like hits his rib cage. Obviously, Sinister heals fast, but Sinister was like, "Oh my god!" Like it felt like he was gonna die. Like he grabbed his ribs and he was like Xavier. He fell to the ground. He hit my ribs. But like Wolverine got him fucking deep apparently. But then right after he blasted away. But yeah, apparently those claws got him good. So
That's amazing. I gotta ask about this. So
okay.
obviously, with now the knowledge that Savage Land is on Earth, and Magneto knows this,
Yeah.
I feel like he never explicitly said it, and that's maybe why I'm a bit confused, like why he would not relay this information to Xavier in some way. Because maybe Xavier, with that information, would have an idea as to what they could do.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that confused me. But like, has their goal this whole time been to find that ship again in the Savage Land to leave? Because obviously
I think so,
Magneto,
yeah.
So it was weird to me that like once again we're talking about this how it seems like okay maybe months they've been here. But then I guess I'm just surprised that it's taken them months to get to this place when I feel like the Savage Land's probably not huge. So obviously it's just a thing for the story because they want you to hold off on that, make it a big finale thing. But it did seem a bit weird to me, and I guess I was just like, okay, is that what they were doing the whole time? They were looking for this ship again, and then funnily enough, when they do get this ship, the crew is there, Amphibious,
Nasty
Vertigo,
boys.
some White Wolf guy, like that four-armed guy's there, and like instantly they just crush them. It's like, man, this whole time, if they were here 30 minutes earlier, everything would have been okay. But because of the timing here, they just got screwed over.
Or was
again.
that crew of guys just sitting there the entire time, like every night?
Yeah,
that was
maybe
their
they've been there
shift,
for months
just to
as
sit there and
well,
wait
waiting.
for. Yeah, it's tough because I do think Savage Land is pretty big. I think the Wakanda comparison's probably good, where it is like a bigger piece of like a land or country. I think it's just they're trying to make it that Magneto's always, because even we get the reveal throughout, like, oh, Magneto used to be the leader here and the Citadel, and then he's like, well, that's not my Citadel anymore. I think he just didn't give Xavier the information to like try to make him seem like less suspect about it, like less like I don't know. But I guess technically, I think Xavier, I guess, knew the whole time, right? Because the season started with they got coordinates, and the coordinates were on Earth, right? Like Xavier didn't go to space or anything, and he met Magneto there, and they fell. So I guess it wasn't too crucial to get the ship back and stuff. So
once again, I just assumed that when we saw that scene that they had teleported to either time traveled back earlier time in Earth, or they teleported to another dimension. So I guess that's where I was kind of taken aback by it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's one line in the first episode I love when they're Wolverine. He smells Morph and he's like, "I know Morph's here. If not, I'll eat the Blackbird." It's like, okay, I don't know why you got to go that way, but yeah. And then Morph was in here going back and forth a lot because of that chip, but he's saved now. They're gonna get the chip out and everything. He shot Xavier, bad like asshole, and I think he shot Xavier when he was downed, actually, like when he already had the legs thing.
Double tap.
Yeah, like I get it
Seems
because
like a
Xavier
Morph
has his
thing to
mind, but yeah, they save him. They're gonna take the chip out and everything like that. But I feel like he was just kind of around this episode. I think they could have maybe done a little bit more with him, considering there's a few episodes where Wolverine was just like looking after him. But again, I like that it all came back to the start of the season where Wolverine was trying. Once he knew Morph was alive, he tried to find him. So
Another.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say like the element of like, man, the more and more I see Xavier, the more I just think he's like a psychopath who like doesn't have emotions of any sort. I found it so weird when Jean gets taken to the Savage Land And so she's put in front of Xavier by Mr. Sinister. She has some huge reaction. She's like, "Oh my God, Xavier, you're alive!" And he's like, "Hello, Jean." Like that's it. He has
Mutant.
no
He's
reaction
tired.
to
Yeah.
seeing this
Mutant.
friend, this like pupil, this like this essentially family member of his, and it's like, yeah, he just has no reaction. He's just such a weirdo, Xavier.
He's tired. That's what I chalk up to. He's exhausted. He's been hiking for days, getting picked up by dinosaurs and hair people. you
Yeah.
know?
It is definitely a completely different Xavier than I'm used to seeing. And one thing I was gonna mention specifically about Wolverine is just throughout watching the show, like we finished 2 seasons now, and I've just never. Or from what my knowledge was, I didn't remember having like a Logan or Wolverine that is just so like from the get-go basically just so ride or die for the X-Men, which is like it's a fun dynamic for sure, because in the live action it seems like he's kind of this outsider who like came
the
in
loner,
and then like that's the transition, or that's the evolution I think of that character throughout those movies, that he really becomes like he's a faculty member at one point, and he like really comes to be a family of the X-Men, but like from the first episode it just seems like he is ride or die with his friends, like he doesn't care, like he's going in there one-man army and saving them. And it's really fun because again it's a different side of Logan than at least I'm used to. It's probably the more comic accurate one, or I don't know.
Yeah, but he's
that.
always on he's always on that line where one bad day and he'll fucking leave too because he's Logan, right? He'd be like, "Oh,
He's been
it's
yeah
cool." Yeah,
he's
and
been
done that
grouchy
already,
and
right?
like I'm leaving, yeah.
Anytime the Jean's getting married or something or pregnant, it's like, "Oh, I hate this place. I never liked any of you," and then he'll be back in a couple months. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, and even when he got kicked out, he got out of there, and then his plan was just he meets Kazar, Kazar's just like trying to. He's really like. He says something about like, "Are you gonna go this way?" And Wolverine's like, "No, I'm gonna go this way." He's like, "Then you must perish." Like he just jumps to he's gonna kill him right away. One of my favorite moments is he jumps on an animal, and his call, he just says, "Ay." Like it's the most generic type of like what the writer's like, okay, he does call to summon an animal. Like what is it? Just ay. And it's just like okay, that's what we got. But yeah, I like him being this kind of like known person in the Savage, like kind of he's experienced, and I like him and Kazar, and I like him and Wolverine together as a unit because I feel like they don't have the exact same mentality as far as their attitude, but as far as how they're brutes, and I like that of like they're just gonna, well, you're my friend now. Once he tells him he's gonna give Mr. Sinister a new navel, so I liked that connection. And stuff, so.
What does he say? Attack is one of my favorite words, or something like that.
Yeah, they're just broing off each other, like
totally.
Like, got a Zoe around here.
I love that whole interaction, man. I'm just like, these two like wild men just meeting each other and they're just clashing like right off the hop without even like having a discussion, and then somehow it gets revealed of like, yeah, no, like I came to stop that, or like your line, gave him a new navel, and then just like, okay, do you want to be best friends? Yeah, let's do it. And then they just like go and save our heroes. Or it was funny too when they get to the Citadel or whatever it is. It's like, oh yeah, no, like my wife is down this way. It's like my friend's that way, so nice meeting you. Never see you again. They go that way. Wolverine instantly just gets like dispatched.
Yeah, during that sequence too, like Kazar just like the immediate there's danger, he just dips. Him and Zabu just jump out the window into the water. It's like, what was their plan? Like I know they were really banking on the secret passage still being secret, which it wasn't, but I thought that was pretty funny. They did not really discuss a plan B if things weren't just easy to solve.
That's probably why they're the only ones that didn't get captured. They just bounced right away. They was just aim for the water, aim for the bushes.
Yep. I was a little confused by the order of like command going on in the Savage Land, because there was this real like brainchild who's like a really weird character.
Hello!
Who has quite the voice, and they made it seem like he's the new king of the Savage Land, like taking over Magneto's position. But then like obviously Mr. Sinister is controlling brainchild, but then Sauron comes in, and it seems like he's also potentially a leader of this thing. So for a good amount of this, I was confused, and I think at the end of the day, like the answer is Mr. Sinister is like controlling everything. But I was very confused by the order of command, and brainchild is like, why did they include him in this episode? Like I do not understand why they decided to add that character in here. Very weird choice.
I feel like the hierarchy's like Sinister's at the top and Brainchild's like the jester, like right hand man, like go get the sort of done. But then Sauron's like his captain in chief, like the first soul, like
The Witch King.
Yeah, the Witch King. Like that's the way I look at it. Yeah, and the Brainchild's Wormel Tongue. You know, like that.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
One of these other guys are Sauron. Maybe that would
The
have
mouth
been
of
Magneto.
Sauron. That could be Brainchild.
Yeah, so that's the way I kind of looked at it. Yeah, I think they stuff a lot in this a little bit, because even then, like if you're watching the first time, you're also just seeing like this dinosaur do mind control on Xavier and convert him. He wins. Like obviously Xavier's weakened because of stuff, but I do think they put a lot of characters in here. But I wonder if they just do that because they want a lot of people for the X-Men to fight at the end, which it does feel epic. There's just lots of battles going on at the end and stuff like that. So, but I can agree with you that I don't think you necessarily need Brainchild, especially we're already kind of getting hints that Sinister is around. So it's like, and we know he's going to be the main guy and stuff. And again, as always, we said this, like voice acting, and they do it also with the modulation, but I just love Sinister's voice. Everything here, he's great. And there's this great, that's my nickname. He's threatening Rogue. He's like, oh, you shouldn't have done this. You're so beautiful and so strong. And Wolverine just walks in. It's like, well, some people have called me kind of cute before. And then he goes in and fucks up Sinister. But yeah, I could agree that there's a lot going on, but at least I like most of it, I guess. So
I think I was with Dylan there, where I know Sinister, like because of where the season was going, I knew Sinister was going to be the big bad, but it was just a weird pecking order of the hierarchy of the Savage Land. Because even when like Magneto and Charles are first there was like that female chick, right, who was like some sort of leader, who like I still kind of had her in the back of my mind. It was just like I thought she was kind of in charge. So
I think she was just a powerhouse. Yeah,
Vertigo,
yeah.
right?
Who would fuck up Wolverine any chance she got? That like Wolverine take up anybody, but at any time, Vertigo. Oh no! Which I will say this. Yeah, go ahead.
Even without when she got Magneto's powers too, I was like, damn, she is like one of the most threatening villains we've had in this series so far. Like even without this Magneto power, now she's like has this bonus like incredibly like top tier level mutant ability. So yeah, shouts to Vertigo. And then all it took was the distraction of like Khazar and his people to like make a loud noise, and she's like, huh? And then like the X-Men like break out and all this thing. But for a good amount there, I was like, man, how are they going to take out Vertigo? Like she is a really good powerhouse for Mr. Sinister to have on his team.
Yeah, the only few notes I have left was at one point Sinister introduced himself. Mr. Magneto's like, I've heard the name. Quite frankly, I'm not impressed.
Yeah, that was badass.
Yeah, I like that. That was the first meeting of them. I said when they were experimenting on the X-Men, way too much of the moans in this episode felt sexual. There was a lot of moaning going on. And then my last point for a cool factor was at one point Cyclops is on the ground, but he's just on his side shooting, and then he'll like switch to his other side. So he was just like on a prone position, like shooting his eye blast. It was cool. So yeah, but that's all I have for this episode. And then, well, I guess what was I gonna say? How does it? We get a happy ending, right? Like, there's no cliffhanger. I can't remember.
Well, you
It's
got
just
Sinister like in the sand.
right, of course. Yeah, making a face. Right. That's what we talked about, that he gets blown up, and then he gets blown up again. And they're like, oh, did you defeat him? No, but it'll take a long time for him to come back, because he just like goes into space and stuff like that. But the X-Men, they won today, so.
One of the notes I had, which crossed my mind when Wolverine made that comment of like, "That's more for I'll eat the blackbird" or whatnot. Is like our heroes have interacted with a lot of transforming characters. You got Morph, you got Mystique, and like it just seems like they should be like thinking about stuff like that in the back of their mind. It's just like no matter what happens, like they can never really know who. Like Morph took over like the entire mansion in that one episode. They need a
code word. We talked about this last week. They need a code word for like if there's two of us, say Tangerine, and then that's the real one.
That's what they should have done. But then in here, he's just like, I'll eat the blackboard if that's not him. And it's like that clearly could have been Mystique easily, and then you would have had to eat the blackbird. Wolverine.
Could have been Apocalypse.
It could have been.
Yeah.
So it was just something in my mind in that moment. I'm just like, these guys, like they are superheroes, but like they got to think about these things. Come on.
I mean, hopefully Professor X can help with that, since he's a mind guy. Obviously, Wolverine does it with his nose, but Travis, in that example, I'm just imagining like Gambit shows up at the X-Mansion. He's like, I brought some tangerines, guys, and then they all just like shoot him on sight. Like, yeah, I don't know. They got to think of a more like obscure word that would not come up in everyday conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
One moment I like, so when they're fighting, I guess the Nasty Boys. What are they called? The Nasty Boys, right?
Yeah, the Nasty Boys.
And Jean and Cyclops are both like picked up by the guy that has like the long stretchy arms. Who I love that guy. He's got great powers. I really liked that Jean used her powers to lift Cyclops' glasses up so that he
Yeah.
could start blasting people. I liked that little couple synergy there. I thought that was pretty cute. Another just I love Storm's weird quips. When they first land in the Savage Land, and I think it's Amphibious who like comes to attack her, and she like just like launches him away, and she's like, "I do not need the elements to deal with a toad like you." Just I love her quips. Mr. Sinister had, because he's like trying to, it's the classic villain thing where he's explaining his whole plan and what he's trying to do.
He loves to talk Sinister.
And how it's better for like, the future of humanity and mutant kind. But I love the line he threw at Cyclops, which was like, "Your eyes can destroy, but they cannot see the truth," or something like that. Just really, really
Seemed
good
like a
stuff.
Thanos line or something, like a very
Yes.
philosophical idea.
Once again, we talked about this, how Khazar and Zabu just dipped out of that building when there was like any sort of adversaries. But also Wolverine, he like charges into that base and gets immediately dispatched. Like, what was his plan? Like, he had no plan whatsoever. So he took all this time, like, maybe not like a full day, but like several hours, maybe close to a full day of him and Khazar doing this thing. They're planning, like, okay, we're going to take over the Citadel. But then when they actually just show up, he has no plan, and he gets immediately wrecked and launched into a screen. So I just thought that was goofy.
He's a shoot first, ask questions later, or plan questions
Yes.
type of later guy,
But he had a lot of time to plan there, but
all
I guess
he's
it's
doing
tricky
is-
without the powers for him.
In those hours, he's just pacing back and forth, like, "Oh, I can't wait to get my hands." Like that's all he's thinking in his mind.
So much anger.
Yeah.
Let's see what else here.
One thing I thought that was strange when Khazar is going to save Shauna, so he's saving her, and then the rest of his people, right, was the line that he dropped. And then so it's Shauna, and I'm pretty sure there was only females in that entire cell. So is it just like, I was getting Amazonian vibes from like Futurama here, because they're all wearing these like super revealing outfits, and like it was just weird to me that it's just like, is Khazar just one of those situations where he's just like the only man or the only male in
Many
this entire
wives.
society?
Polyamorous.
I wonder
or
if,
whatnot.
because we saw like people that looked like that were like part of those like
Oh
the
yeah,
Sky Riders.
yeah,
you
the
know?
Sky
So
Riders.
maybe
right.
they took, maybe Mr. Sister took those guys and like mind controlled them or something. So he took all the men and he just left the like women and
Right,
children to
yeah.
be left in this cage in the Citadel. Maybe that was what was.
That would
going
make
on.
sense.
I get a couple things at the end of this season. So Magneto, him and Charles, they've obviously been getting along for this time in the Savage Land. But then he's just like, "Oh, I'm gonna go do my own thing, and I'll see you around."
Xavier's like, "Could we ever work together?" And Magneto's like, "Never." Like, okay, that's the end of that conversation.
He shuts him down, which makes sense. He's
Yeah.
going to come back as a villain in the future, or I'm sure he'll be good again. He'll be bad again. We'll get all that. So
Oh, yeah.
I like that. But yeah, the X-Men also bring Morph back with them. So obviously Taylor's watched ahead, and maybe Travis remembers, but I'm curious to see what journey we have for Morph ahead in this future season. I also like that the X-Men, before they leave, they stay to help rebuild the inhabitants, so like the home, the town, whatever it is, for the Savage Land people. I thought that was a very kind thing for them to do. Not the first time either. I think they did that. Was it in the Storm focused
I
episode?
think yeah.
Yeah. And
That
then
place
like
in,
obviously we saw
Africa
the
or
rebuilding the X Mansion, but like they'll do some laborer work when they need to as well.
Yeah.
And Wolverine did that too in the North, right? In that Sabretooth episode.
Right. Yeah. A lot of rebuilding.
Big
that has to
construction
go on.
guys.
Yeah, they feel bad about all this destruction that they have to throw out on this world.
Yeah.
And then we talked about the Mr. Sinister element with him reforming in the sand. He's still alive, all that. And then Sauron, who was just alive through this whole thing, he makes some hint too at like the future of the Savage Land is going to be. I forget what his line is exactly, but hinting that to me like he was going to take over and be the new king. Even though Mr. Sinister is still there, or maybe he meant that he was going to bring Mr. Sinister back. I don't know exactly what his intent was, but I guess I just wanted to mention that in terms of, are we going to see more Savage Land? If so, I'm curious what it's going to look like in the future. So
I think you may. I think you
All
may.
right.
not as much as this
Now
season.
that it's on Earth, why not?
Yeah.
We can go there in an afternoon. So
I'll
let's
prep
do
you
it.
that you'll never get a season full of just like Sauron at the 2-minute Sauron scenes of like, I'm planning
Classic,
this,
yeah.
So
I think that was all my notes.
one quick shout out for me. I really like that Xavier acknowledged, like, to Magneto that the X-Men, they were able to act in his absence, and
Yeah.
for the most part, they did pretty damn good. So
They got Beast out of prison. Yeah, I like that. Just saying that he knows that he can feel comfortable stepping back, and they're gonna be okay. Because technically, no one died, you know. So I feel like that's a successful run and stuff. He's gonna get back and be like, "What the fuck happened to my Bruce?" and everything.
Yeah.
And Rogue will have to answer for that. But then she'll tell him about Miss
roof.
Marvel. Yeah. So. Yeah.
I couldn't help but laugh when Morph, just again, like, you know, he has this heroic moment of like double crossing Sinister. But it's like the exact same result that happened last time, where he like shoots him. Sinister just like gets a hold of him. He's like, I should have left you to die. And it's just like, man, like, why do you keep trusting him then, Sinister?
Yeah.
God, learn from
I
your
feel like they
mistakes.
zoom in on his teeth when he says that
Oh,
line
yeah.
too. He's like,
They get
looking
sharper.
extra
Yeah.
evil in that moment.
Looking like a Gringotts goblin.
Yeah.
Anything else? I will give. I think I'll give it a thumb and a half. I would like to give it the 2 thumb, but I don't know if I can get fully there. I still think it's a great finale, and like I said, I think I like the way they intertwine all the stories. But maybe there's a little stuff they could have lost, and there's some stuff where we joke about, but still when we really think about, like, that doesn't make sense, or why, you know, what's Wolverine and Kazar doing? But yeah, I'll thumb and a half for me. Good finale though.
I'm gonna give each episode I'd give 2 thumbs. So you could say 2-part I'll give 2 thumbs as a whole. I really enjoyed this finale. It was a big culmination moment for me. I feel like almost every character gets something to do, except for Jubilee. I think she's just absent, right, as we discussed. So yeah, I really enjoyed this finale and setting up some fun stuff for the future season as well. A lot of good stuff I'm excited for. So yeah, good stuff.
I'll go thumb and a half on this one for me. For, I guess, the 2 episodes. Spread them across.
Sounds good.
I'm with Kirkland. I go with thumb and a half for both too.
Thumb and a half.
And
Well,
like Dylan was saying earlier, I feel like this is my favorite string of episodes that we've done so far. There's just a lot of bangers in there. Although I didn't love the Mojo stuff, there was... I mostly just didn't like the character. There was some good content in there for sure.
All right, well, we've done it. I was just looking, next season's a little bit longer, so you'll see some different type of breakups as far as the episodes and stuff like that. But yeah, it's going to be good. I think we got some good ones to cover. There's a couple big storylines of X-Men past that we will be talking about. So yeah, till then, it'll not be boring.
Bye-bye.